Chapter 1076. Student, put down your weapon. Let's talk nicely. The people around were shocked. They did not expect Bei Yunj to act so quickly. Even the staff could not react in time. Xiao Han also felt that death had enveloped his life. For the first time he felt like his life was hanging by a thread and his eyes were filled with fear. You, Chief Chen was furious. Who are you? Do you know what you're doing? Put it down. Bei Yunj licked her red lips and suddenly smirked. Before anyone could react, she punched Xiao Han's face ruthlessly. Xiao Han's mouth was filled with blood and his teeth were loose. After howling in pain he was trembling in fear. The rest of the people were also anxious and in disbelief. They did not expect someone to dare to hit someone in the police station. Crazy, crazy. She was really crazy. Bei Yunj turned her neck and the sound of her muscles and bones moving could be heard clearly. She suddenly laughed and her voice was dangerous and cold. Are you threatening me? Tell me what kind of urn do you like? Xiao Han met Bei Yunj's cold eyes and felt as if he was soaked in ice as his body trembled. Fortunately, at this moment, Song Yao heard the commotion at the door and immediately opened the door and rushed in. When she saw this scene, her face paled slightly and she immediately went up to grab Bei Yunj's hand. Yunj, calm down. The redness in Bei Yunj's eyes faded and she saw Song Yao holding her hand. Are you all right? After Bei Yunj regained her senses, she took a deep breath and said calmly, My hand hurts. Everyone was speechless. Good fellow. Why did it feel like she was being bullied? Then don't be rash. I'll go buy disinfectant cotton for you. It was not the first time Song Yao had seen Bei Yunj unable to suppress her temper. Her fierce appearance was indeed scary. Got it. Bei Yunj replied calmly. Song Yao touched Bei Yunj's head and ran out hurriedly. The others did not dare to agitate Bei Yunj, afraid that Bei Yunj would do it again. Outside the door, Chief Chen had a bad temper. Find her parents. Call this person's parents over. Have you found the school's parents' phone numbers? The staff member checked slowly. Soon. Who wouldn't shout good in their hearts when they saw Xiao Han being beaten like a dog? However, with Chief Chen around, no one could say anything. What bastard is this? Daring to snatch a gun here? I want to see which parent raised such a daughter. Chief Chen finished speaking. The staff member had already made the call, but when he heard the familiar, formulaic reply, he felt a little strange. There was an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Hello, is this the Hualing Subdistrict Police Station in Yun City? Please wait a moment. Someone will come to deal with it in half an hour. The staff answered in confusion. After hanging up the phone, he felt that he had seen this phone number before. Chief Chen had already brought the foreign negotiators and Xiao Han into the meeting room. 20 minutes later, the staff member suddenly had a ridiculous idea in his mind. He immediately opened the record book and checked the phone numbers one by one. She didn't expect that he would really find her a few minutes later. He took a closer look. In the office of the Southern District of Country A. He stood up suddenly and was about to go in to report when he saw a white-haired elder walk in energetically. He smiled politely and asked, Little comrade, I'm here to look for someone. May I know where the meeting room is? Chapter 1077. The staff looked at the person in front of him and almost blacked out. His lips were trembling. Chu, what's wrong with her? Why isn't this girl picking up her phone? Elder Chu turned on his flip phone seriously and kept calling Bei Yunj. He did not expect the other party to suddenly pick up. Before Elder Chu could speak, he heard Chief Chen's unfriendly tone. Bei Yunj's parent? Don't tell me you're not coming? If you're not coming, I'll deal with this child directly. Hearing Chief Chen speak to Elder Chu like this, the staff beside him panicked and did not dare to look at Elder Chu's expression. Knowing that Bei Yunj might have gotten into trouble, Elder Chu's temper was still relatively good. I'm coming. Chief Chen sneered. He did not realize that this voice was exceptionally familiar and hung up the phone. Elder Chu was speechless. Were all the small cadres nowadays so bad-tempered? Elder Chu, I'll handle this matter. The staff carefully looked at the person beside Elder Chu and his heart skipped a beat. Even the person beside Elder Chu was 2 levels higher than Chief Chen. Elder Chu snorted and walked up without explaining. Actually, Elder Chu was unhappy. The news of Bei Yunj becoming the top scholar in the college entrance examination had spread throughout the district. Even Elder Lung had an invitation to the banquet, but he did not. This girl was too heartless. She did not even think about who took care of her like his biological granddaughter when she was training in the district. At this thought, Elder Chu walked up angrily. The staff could not come back to his senses for a long time. Why was it Elder Chu? What are you thinking about? Has Yun's parent gone up? Uncle Lu came over and asked. He also sighed. This child is actually quite good. She likes to help others. It's just that, her temper is a little bad. Coming. The staff nodded, feeling a little numb. All right, I'll go up and take a look. After Uncle Lu finished speaking, the staff suddenly called out to him. Uncle Lu. What's wrong? Uncle Lu was puzzled. Please change your clothes. The staff sized him up and said seriously, it's best if you shave your beard and straighten your back. You'll look more energetic. Uncle Lu was speechless. What was wrong with him? It was not like he was meeting some big boss. What was he doing? Upstairs. They didn't expect that after the incident, the chief Chen of the crematorium still had a cold expression on his face. Bei Yunj didn't know what to think. She glanced at the phone in Chief Chen's hand and then at Xiao Han, who had just finished bandaging his wound. Xiao Han met Bei Yunj twice and was beaten up twice. Each meal was more vicious than the last. Why aren't your parents here yet? Chief Chen asked coldly. Bei Yunj was also impatient. How would I know which side you called? The school's reserved phone number had been changed over and over again by those people who couldn't be provoked. If she asked a few more questions, they would think that she was annoying them. Chief Chen's expression changed. Ridiculous. Don't you know who your own parents are? He sneered. Today, no matter who your parents are, what you've done is enough for you to bear legal responsibility. At that time, even if you were sent to the international border prison, you asked for it. Who do you think you are? Do you think you can be the hero for everything? Bei Yunj's eyes twitched. Before she could say anything, a voice came from the door. Why do you have to go to prison if you want to be a hero? Chief Chen knew that Bei Yunj's parents had arrived. He turned around and sneered. No wonder you dared to commit murder in the bureau at such a young age. I think it's because the upper beam is not upright. Elder Chu? Chapter 1078. Director Chen instinctively stood up, his entire body tense. His mind was in a mess. He didn't understand why Elder Chu would appear here. And one of the foreigners happened to have seen Elder Chu before. His expression changed slightly and he had the same question as Director Chen. The upper beam is not upright and the lower beam is not upright? Elder Chu laughed, but there was no smile on his face. From the beginning to the end, he gave off an inviolable sense of dignity. Silly girl, what did you do this time? You got someone to scold me while you were at it? Although he was scolding Bei Yunj, Director Chen was scared witless. He felt that Elder Chu's words were directed at him. After regaining his senses, Director Chen's face turned even paler and he looked incredulous. Bei Yunj's guardian is? Elder Chu? Therefore, he was shouting at Elder Chu on the phone just now and even scolded him in front of him. Director Chen suddenly felt a chill down his spine and he almost fainted. He had already checked Bei Yunj's information, but he didn't expect that the guardian would be Elder Chu. Elder Chu only glanced at him indifferently and said calmly, Don't worry about my identity. I'm here this time to find out what this fellow has done. If she's really guilty, I won't disobey the law. But if my girl is being bullied... Elder Chu sneered, but everyone present had a bad feeling. This old man isn't dead yet. I want to see which dog dares to bite my head. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's scalps went numb and they didn't dare to look at Elder Chu. Everyone knew that Elder Chu was famous for his bad temper and he never gave anyone face. But it was this kind of Elder Chu who had made countless contributions when he was young. Even many of the main characters in movies and TV series were based on him. At this moment, Director Chen's legs were already trembling. He swallowed his saliva and his eyes were still empty. How could Bei Yunj's guardian be Elder Chu? Originally, he had planned to solve this matter without telling the higher-ups. After all, Xiao Han's background was very powerful and even had connections with Country A. It was fine for him to give Xiao Han some face. Besides, he didn't think that it was worth it to create a conflict between two countries for a powerless woman. But the unexpected mistake was this Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj also fell silent. Not long after she asked, Old Master? You my guardian? She couldn't understand why this group of old men had such similar interests. She liked to be a parent everywhere she went. What? Can't I? Elder Chu said confidently. All right. Bei Yunj leaned back, closed her eyes and rubbed her eyes. She didn't care if there was one more person. What's wrong with you? You didn't even pick up your phone? Elder Chu was very engrossed in his role. Bei Yunj glanced lazily at Director Chen, who was about to shut himself up. How are you going to pick it up if it's taken away? Director Chen, who was holding Bei Yunj's phone, was speechless. Under Elder Chu's gaze, Director Chen slowly placed the phone in front of Bei Yunj. Who can tell me what's going on? Elder Chu asked coldly. Director Chen's body stiffened at this moment. He didn't dare to push the blame to Bei Yunj. He was afraid that Elder Chu would get angry and throw him out. Xiaohan was not afraid at all. It was Bei Yunj who hit me time and time again. She even pointed a gun at me. Elder Chu looked at Bei Yunj. Did he do that? Bei Yunj said slowly, yes. Chapter 1079. Lai Yunqing laughed sarcastically from behind. She wanted to see with her own eyes how Bei Yunj was asking for trouble. Suddenly, the man beside her walked towards Bei Yunj. This made the sarcasm in Lai Yunqing's eyes grow stronger. But in the next moment, the man looked at the little girl in front of him casually for a while. Suddenly, he chuckled softly and naturally went along with her intentions. Then I'll try it first. The man's tone was neither fast nor slow. Before Bei Yunj could regain her senses, his slender figure had already bent down and his ambiguous breath was on her cheek. The itchy and hot invasion made her even more unbearable. Bei Yunj's body froze. She felt that in this position, the man's thin lips would be able to touch hers if they were just a little closer. At this moment, the man's gaze was unfathomable, as if there was some kind of desire surging in his eyes. He stared straight at her, making her ears burn. She did not expect this D*Emin man to use his gaze to seduce her in front of others. Before Bei Yunj could move, the man's low and hoarse laughter drifted into her ears. It was so seductive. It's quite sweet. As soon as she finished speaking, the man's lips suddenly curled up. His slender and well-defined fingers slowly stuffed the black wallet into the little girl's pocket. Huoshidu's low laughter was not very serious, but it was also so intimate that it made one's head heat up. Little rich woman, feed me. Bei Yunj instinctively raised her hand, but when she reacted, the man reached out and grabbed her slender wrist. He gently bit the strawberry-flavored soft candy that she had just opened. Bei Yunj felt the wetness and heat on her fingertips. Her long and curly eyelashes fluttered violently. The moment she looked up, she saw the man licking his thin red lips. It was so tempting. When Lai Yunqing saw this scene, her face turned green and red. Her face was filled with disbelief. She had also seen the man's intimate and ambiguous behavior towards Bei Yunj just now. How did Huoshidu know Bei Yunj? And they were so close? At this moment, only Luoxia glanced at the candy wrapper in Bei Yunj's hand and suddenly froze. Wasn't this the candy wrapper he saw in Nancy's lab? Luoxia suddenly raised his eyes. His mind had a very frightening guess. He looked at Bei Yunj. You? Bei Yunj looked at the man. After resisting the urge to kiss him for a while, she heard Luo speak to her. What is it? Luoxia immediately asked, Where did you get this candy? Bei Yunj, a dark look flashed across her eyes and she said slowly, I got it from Nancy. Luoxia unconsciously let out a sigh of relief, but he still asked, Really? Bei Yunj was also very patient. Yes, that's good. Luoxia immediately relaxed. After looking at Bei Yunj, he also felt that he was thinking too much. Bei Yunj was not even 20 years old. She was probably a few years older than him. How could they be the same person? Suddenly, Bei Yunj saw from the corner of her eye that the back of Huoshidu's knuckles were slightly red. Brother, what happened to your hand? Does it hurt? Bei Yunj held it up and looked at it carefully. Huoshidu looked down at the little girl in front of him who was nervous about him. His hand was also being rubbed by her warm and soft hand. The corners of his lips curled up. Yes, it does hurt quite a bit. Zhou Yu, who knew the truth, Shui Hengchuan, who had just fainted and was dragged to the hospital, was in even more pain. Bei Yunj looked up and saw the man pursing his lips and smiling. His peach blossom eyes seemed to float up, and the corners of his eyes were slightly raised. The way he stared at her was too voodoo. End of chapter. Chapter 1080. Bei Yunj immediately let go of his hand and turned her face away unnaturally. However, Huoshidu caught a glimpse of the little girl's red ears as she slowly chewed on the melted soft candy. How did Mr. Hui get to know Miss Pei? Lai Yunqing asked with a stiff smile. But a moment later, Lai Yunqing's expression changed slightly as she realized that the man did not like others probing about him at all. She immediately forced a smile. I didn't expect Miss Pei's identity to be so extraordinary. To Lai Yunqing, what was even more extraordinary was Bei Yunj's methods. She could actually get close to Huoshidu. Similarly, Lai Yunqing could not hide her jealousy and hatred as she looked at Bei Yunj. Because of Bei Yunj, her younger brother Lai Yunheng, was not only expelled from K-Continent Academy, but also had to take a leave of absence for 3 months to recuperate. However, Bei Yunji's relationship with Huashidu was not ordinary. She could not risk the Lai family and offend Huashidu. All of a sudden, Huashidu reached out and rubbed the space between the little girl's eyebrows intimately with his fingers. The warmth that remained on her skin was ambiguous as he said faintly, "Yunyan, you'll be returning to school in a few months. Do you want to find a tutor here?" Hearing this, a strange glint flashed across Lai Yunqing's eyes and her smile deepened. "Mr. Hua, actually, there's a training camp in Laboratory 191 recently." Luoxia frowned and looked at Lai Yunqing. The training camp in Laboratory 191 was not suitable for a pampered young lady like Bei Yunj who had never seen much of the world. Those who dared to sign up for that training camp had always been scientific elites from all over the world. Moreover, it was said that there were many talented contestants among the people who signed up this year. Even if Lai Yunqing was there, she might not be able to get the first prize. Luoxia could not help but speak up. Yunqing, in a place like the Confederate Alliance's 191 training camp, her identity? A certain someone suddenly let out a lazy, "Ah." She seemed to be quite worried. "Training camp? But brother wants to open the back door and send me there. What if I get first place? That won't be good, right?" Luoxia, this kind of confidence that was bursting to the brim was rarely seen. As expected, Lai Yunqing's smile froze and there was sarcasm in her eyes. "If Miss Pei is worried about this, I can actually invite you." Luoxia immediately interrupted, "Professor Lai, Confederate 191 has already stopped registering you. It's not a big deal to stop the registration. I just need to tell Wang Huiying to add another slot." Lai Yunqing's eyes were filled with a cold sneer. Wang Huiying was famous for humiliating trash to show off her sense of superiority. At that time, Bei Yunj would definitely be fooled by Wang Huiying. However, Lai Yunqing didn't notice the smile on Bei Yunj's face and the way she looked at her. This was the first time she felt that Lai Yunqing was a normal person. Although Lai Yunqing didn't seem to have anything good in her head. Huashidu looked at the little girl's itchy expression and subconsciously pursed his lips. His upturned peach blossom eyes were filled with a smile. Su's gaze was so foul that it made one's heart beat wildly. Zhou Yu's eyelids twitched when he saw Master Du looking at Miss Pei with a doting gaze. Master Du was openly using the Lai family as a springboard for Miss Pei. Bei Yunj suddenly said, "Professor Lai, I'll treat you to a meal." Lai Yunqing's gaze was gloomy, but she quickly pretended to be surprised and smiled. "Isn't it too extravagant?" Bei Yunj looked at her with interest. "That won't happen. P.S. Master Pei, otherwise I won't feel at ease when I slap your face in the future." End of chapter. Chapter 1081. After a while, Lai Yunqing watched as Bei Yunj skillfully took out the black wallet that Huashidu had stuffed into her pocket to pay. The smile on her face was also slightly distorted. She really couldn't understand why a man like Huashidu would take a fancy to Bei Yunj. He even indulged her to this extent? "Master Du, do you know what kind of hell level the Confederate 191's training camp is? How dare you treat Bei Yunj?" Before Luoxia could finish speaking, Huashidu slowly interrupted him. "It's good for her to interact more with others." "Luoxia, are you sure you won't shatter your little girl's confidence?" Luoxia could tell that Huashidu was extremely indulgent towards Bei Yunj. "Master Du, you'll regret it sooner or later if you spoil her like this." After speaking, Luoxia also walked away. At this moment there was no one around. "Master Du, there are many people with status who are participating in the training camp this year." "Miss Pei, Zhou Yu hesitated. However, the man just pulled down his tie unhurriedly. The loose collar made him look light and lazy. "Then let's properly remind them who this person is." Hearing this, Zhou Yu couldn't help but shudder. Yes, he didn't expect that every time he felt that Master Du doted on Miss Pei enough, Master Du would continue to break through the bottom line. Let her go in and have fun for a while. Huashidu smirked as he watched Bei Yunj walk towards him. "Aren't you going to treat someone to a meal?" Huashidu naturally reached out to tidy Bei Yunj's slightly messy hair. "I've already paid." After Bei Yunj finished speaking, she stuffed the used black wallet into the man's coat pocket. She even added, "I didn't use much." Zhou Yu maintained his smile and didn't say anything. What's wrong with spending some money? Even if you sold Master Du out, Master Du might not be angry." In the restaurant, Lai Yunqing couldn't help but secretly ask Luoxia. She smiled. "Miss Pei is really young and energetic. Mr. Hua also dotes on her a lot." I wonder if Mr. Huo will send someone to accompany Miss Pei to the training camp? Luoxia snorted. Send someone to accompany her to the training camp? Master Du has already been bewitched to the point that he has lost his rationality. Do you still think that there's someone who can compare to Bei Yunji? Lai Yunqing did not expect to get such an answer. But after hearing Luoxia's words, she relaxed. Her lips curled into a sarcastic smile. Since that was the case, it was the best solution. Confederation Laboratory number 191 was located in a remote castle in Continent K. Bei Yunji went in smoothly. Hello, which training camp are you from? Suddenly someone asked. Bei Yunji turned around and saw a young man wearing glasses. Which training camp? There's no biology course this year. The training camp only has chemistry, physics, and computer science. The young man was a little impatient. Bei Yunji's eyes moved and she thought for a moment. Physics. Hearing this, the young man frowned and glanced at her with an inquisitive gaze. What does your family do? Bei Yunji thought for a moment and said, It makes money. The young man, Bei Yunji rubbed her thumb and said impatiently, Big brother makes money, second brother sings, and third brother likes to play games. The young man, this family lived a very muddle-headed life. The young man nodded. So you're a poor student. Bei Yunji, end of chapter. Chapter 1082. After Xiao Han came to his senses, he shivered again and hurriedly called Du Xiao. But in the end, he was told that the International Musicians Association had forced him out. How is this possible? How could this be? Xiao Han's face was ashen and his heart was throbbing with pain. He staggered and fell to the ground without a care for his image. Bei Yunji returned to the computing institute. What's wrong? It's rare to see you here at this time. Zhong Xinglin laughed. Old master, didn't you find me a doctor recently? Where is he? Zhong Xinglin was stunned by Bei Yunji's sudden positive attitude. Then he smiled from ear to ear. Wait a moment. I'll ask him if he has time to come now. Zhong Xinglin was very happy. After all, he had always been most worried about Bei Yunji's psychological problems. Usually, Bei Yunji treated this matter very casually. Scientific research was more important than her health. But today she actually took the initiative to look for a doctor. In the research lab, Bei Yunji also lowered her eyes. Her thoughts were running wild. Actually, in the past year, she rarely had uncontrollable violent thoughts, so she always thought that her situation was much better than before. Half an hour later. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. A young man pushed the door open and entered. When he walked in and saw Bei Yunji's face, he was stunned. You are? Bei Yunji did not care about his probing and replied indifferently, Yes. My name is Yu Jilin. Yu Jilin, who had always been indifferent, looked at Bei Yunji in front of him and felt inexplicably nervous. He did not expect that the new scientific researcher was actually a young girl in her 20s. Hello. Bei Yunji was polite, but her attitude was more distant. But to Yu Jilin, who had seen all kinds of people, he could understand. When will the treatment start? Bei Yunji's sudden question made Yu Jilin react. I only know a little about you. I might need to spend some time with you. Yu Jilin said, Miss, can you relax and chat with me? Bei Yunji agreed, but after 2 hours they got very little useful information. After all, Bei Yunji's problems started in her previous life, so she couldn't describe the circumstances of her previous life in detail. In the end, Yu Jilin decided to wait for a few days. He wanted to make another appointment to see how Bei Yunji interacted with the social environment. Before leaving, Bei Yunji asked casually, Dr. Yu, will my condition affect the people around me? Yu Jilin was silent. Miss Pei, your condition is very likely to lead to violent tendencies. Also, you had such thoughts today. But I don't want to hurt the people around me. Bei Yunji pursed her lips. I know you're sincere to the people around you. However, Miss Pei, if relationships are based on communication, it might be difficult for you to feel the love of others when your illness worsens. Yu Jilin teased, however, I don't think Miss Pei has a boyfriend. At this point, Yu Jilin saw Bei Yunji suddenly look at him. He heard the other party say slowly, I'm actively cooperating with the treatment so that I can have a boyfriend. Yu Jilin was speechless. Miss Pei, don't worry. There's no result yet. We don't have to be too pessimistic. Yu Jilin wanted to comfort Bei Yunji, but he didn't expect her to nod her head as if she understood. Then do I have a chance to fall in love in university? Chapter 1083. Yu Jilin. He could not tell that this person actually wanted to fall in love so much. For a few days, Huashidu could feel that Bei Yunj was looking at him with a complicated gaze. However, as soon as he approached, Bei Yunj would lower her head and write something on the computer. This made Huashidu think that this child had gotten into some trouble and could not solve it by himself. In the corporation. In the huge office, the light from the floor-to-ceiling window not far away shone on the man's side profile through the gaps in the blinds. "How's that matter going?" Hearing Huashidu's sudden question, Zhou Yu was stunned for a moment before he immediately said, "Xiao Han's matter has been resolved." The man was silent for a moment. "Is there anything else?" Zhou Yu hesitated. "There shouldn't be anything else recently. Hasn't Miss Pei been going to the computing institute?" Zhou Yu knew a little about Bei Yunj's whereabouts, but he would not follow her. He would only secretly remove some obstacles for Miss Pei. The man retracted his gaze and hummed lightly before letting Zhou Yu leave. In the evening, Zhou Yu was sitting in Tseng Su's office and playing with his phone when he suddenly saw Tseng Su running in a panic. "What's wrong with you? Can you calm down? If Master Du sees you, you will be despised again." Zhou Yu's eyes were filled with disdain. Tseng Su seemed to have suddenly entered a meditative state and cursed again. F***ck Zhou Yu? Then Zhou Yu's face darkened. "What are you doing? I only sat in your office for a while. What's with your attitude?" "No." Tseng Su swallowed his saliva and said with some difficulty, "I went to a hotel near Muse today to accompany a customer for a meal and saw Miss Pei, and then?" Zhou Yu asked instinctively. "I saw her walk into Muse with a man beside her." After Tseng Su finished speaking, Zhou Yu was about to say something when he suddenly noticed someone passing by the door. His expression changed and he gestured for Tseng Su to shut up. However, Tseng Su was very excited. "Do you know Muse? This is a bar. Miss Pei actually swaggered into a bar with a man. This is clearly the little cabbage that our Master Du has painstakingly raised has been snatched away by someone else. Zhou, do you dare to stab Master Du in the heart again?" Zhou Yu had no choice but to brace himself and stand up. "Master Du," Tseng Su's body trembled when he heard this. It was over. Huashidu only glanced at them unhurriedly. There was no expression on his face as he walked away. Seeing this, Zhou Yu swallowed his saliva and asked carefully, "Master Du, is he angry or not? After so many years, I still haven't been able to figure it out through Master Du." "You don't have to think about this. As long as it concerns Miss Pei, Master Du is no different from an ordinary man." Tseng Su still felt as if the god of death had just descended upon him, and his heart was still filled with lingering fear. "Muse?" Bei Yunj's eyes twitched. "Observe from here?" "Yes. You just sit at the bar counter. If someone comes looking for you, you can chat normally like before. Yu Jilin even brought a book to analyze and record at any time." Bei Yunj. This was the first time he had encountered such a treatment method. Bei Yunj walked to the bar counter and sent a message to Huashidu, saying that she would be home later today. Very quickly, the man replied to her message simply. Bei Yunj did not pay much attention to it. She sat at the bar counter and drank. It had to be said. Bei Yunj only needed to sit there and not say anything to attract the attention of most people. Chapter 1084. After a while, a man in a suit with a glass of champagne in his hand leaned against the bar counter with a smile. "Miss, are you alone?" Bei Yunj was about to say something when she noticed Yu Jilin's gaze. "Yes." "Shall I treat you to a drink?" The man in the suit smiled confidently and placed the Mercedes-Benz keys on the bar counter. "Miss, you look very young. You should be a university student?" Bei Yunj bit the straw for a while and looked down at the low-alcohol cocktail he handed over. She suddenly laughed. The way she raised her eyebrows was charming. But then, Bei Yunj snapped her fingers and slowly pushed the card to the female bartender with her fingertips. She smiled familiarly and said, "I'll treat everyone here today." As soon as she finished speaking, the man in the suit turned green. As the most high-end bar in Yunqing, Muse gave a first-class customer experience. Of course, the drinks were also the most expensive. Even if it was him, he wouldn't dare to buy everyone's drinks just for a woman. For a moment, there were cheers in the bar. Yu Jilin, who was not far away, was stunned by Bei Yunj's actions. He had wanted to see how she would politely reject others or chat with others casually. After all, the atmosphere in a bar was very relaxed, but it also tested one's social skills. However, he never thought that the moment Bei Yunj came up, she would be like a frequent customer of a nightclub. She scared everyone away, but fortunately, although Bei Yunj's lineup was a little big, there were also many people who came for her face. Yu Jilin eavesdropped on them. Miss, do you have any hobbies? Bei Yunj didn't even look up. Scientific research. It was rare to see two words end a conversation. No one would have thought that flirting with girls would require some scientific research. But fortunately, that person's psychological quality was not bad. He forced a smile and said, "Is that so? Actually, I'm more curious. What kind of guy does Miss like?" Yujilin admired such a straightforward pickup artist. But soon he heard Bei Yunj's perfunctory and playful tone. Good-looking, gentle, at least 185 meters tall. It's best if his surname is Hua. My family once told me my fortune and said, the surname Hua can suppress me. This young lady with bright eyebrows and cold eyes, when she said the last sentence, it made people feel inexplicably flirtatious. The flirting man's smile froze. Not to mention the other characteristics of Bei Yunj, the surname Hua alone was rare in Yunqing. Sir, are you planning to show me your ID card? Bei Yunj poked the ice twice with a straw and asked leisurely. The pickup guy left awkwardly. Yujilin numbly recorded Bei Yunj's devastating rejection. However, just as the next person fearlessly came up to hit on her, Huashidu happened to be not far away from the hall. He looked at the girl at the bar counter who was smiling. She was talking to a young and unfamiliar man. Huashidu's pale-colored eyes were filled with emotions, and the surrounding atmosphere was inexplicably depressed. Tseng Su and Zhou Yu's eyes were about to twitch. Why did they encounter such a scene as soon as they entered? At the same time, this was the first time they felt sorry for their Master Du and feared him. His heart ached that Master Du had really been cuckolded by Miss Pei. They were also afraid that Master Du would smash this bar on the spot and turn it into a crematorium. Tseng Su's hand hurt from Zhou Yu's poke. He could only think of a way to comfort him. Master Du, don't think too much. Maybe this is Miss Pei's brother? Zhou Yu. Chapter 1085. At this moment, Elder Ma explained, as the laboratory has been busy recently, there is a shortage of manpower, so the physics and computing competitions are combined this year. However, each team should have 2 or 3 computing contestants, so don't worry. The contestants were speechless. Wasn't this a little too cruel? Different professions were worlds apart. They were actually competing together? Not long after, everyone accepted this fact. Actually, everyone knew a little about physics, but it was not necessarily the case for computing. Therefore, the contestants who knew computing were the key. At this moment, Su Jihuan came to her senses and subconsciously grabbed her team member list. She looked at the new member and had a terrifying premonition. Are you Hu Qingzhong or Bian Xiaotan? Du Chaoya's expression was also not very good. He just smiled at her. This smile and silence was already very clear. It was over. She had just chased away 2 computing contestants. The remaining 4 were all physics contestants. Were they going to lose in one round? Not far away, Wang Huiying saw Su Jihuan chase away the 2 computing contestants and her smile deepened. Originally, she had picked the 2 weakest computer players for Su Jihuan so that Su Jihuan would lose early. She did not expect Su Jihuan to take the initiative to chase them away. I remember that Miss Wang is the same as me. You've learned computing before, right? Tang Fengyin smiled. Wang Huiying turned around and also smiled easily. Yes, it shouldn't be difficult for us. As long as we get first place, the following situation will be very good for us. No problem. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and went into the room to look at the competition rules. She was quite surprised. It is really programming. Su Jihuan could no longer hold it in. I'm sorry. I chased away the 2 computing contestants just now. Now I'll beg them to come back. I definitely won't implicate you guys. However, before Su Jihuan left, she heard Bei Yunj say, no need. This isn't difficult. Tang Yi subconsciously asked, you know computing? A little. After Bei Yunj finished speaking, Du Chaoya frowned again. But the other party has at least 2 or 3 computing contestants. Can you do it alone? Yes. Bei Yunj sat down and turned on the computer. Su Jihuan immediately went over and asked curiously, you've learned it before? When did you learn it? Bei Yunj, I forgot. I haven't touched this thing in a long time. Su Jihuan and the other 2. So how did you manage to remain so calm? Bei Yunj thought that her teammates were silent because they could not understand the game. It's a small game. It's quite simple. It's probably about entering the war zone through a bug and snatching flags. The ranking is determined by the points. However, the others were even more silent. Bei Yunj, soon the competition began. The 9 war zones with loopholes were opened at the same time. However, because the first 9 battle zones were ranked according to the difficulty, no one disrupted the order and started from the last battle zone. The remaining 3 team members could only watch as Bai Yunj scanned the 9 battle zones and tapped away on the keyboard. But in less than 10 minutes, Su Jihuan saw that Bai Yunj seemed to have changed the battle zone. What was even more eye-catching was that Bai Yunj had jumped out from the last battle zone. Su Jihuan was very anxious. Although she did not understand what Bai Yunj was doing since there was no increase in points, it meant that Bai Yunj did not get a flag. She wanted to persuade Bai Yunj to start from the simplest battle zone, but she was afraid of hurting Bai Yunj's confidence. P.S. Good night. End of chapter. Chapter 1086. Sir, who are you looking for? Someone asked. Yu Jilin smiled. Miss Pei. At this moment, everyone in the private room felt the pressure around someone become even lower, making it hard for them to breathe. Su Yu continued to watch the show. Oh, sir, what's your relationship with Miss Pei? I'm Miss Pei's. The doctor. Before Yu Jilin could finish speaking, Bai Yunj interrupted him. Just friends. The people around did not think much of it. Yu Jilin raised his eyebrows. He understood that Bai Yunj did not want anyone to know about her illness. Yes. Yu Jilin smiled. However, in the man's eyes, it was a different story. The man suppressed the darkness in his eyes. Under the ambiguous light, even his gaze became unfathomable. Suddenly, Huashidu said unhurriedly, "What do you want to play?" Everyone's eyes lit up. This was the first time Master Du had participated in such a boring and meaningless game. Bai Yunj's eyes twitched. She knew that this man's abnormality today had something to do with her. She immediately said, Yu Jilin, you can go back first. I'll go back later. With that said, Bai Yunj's gaze fell on Huashidu. Yu Jilin's eyes flashed and he looked at the man beside Bai Yunj. After a while he said, okay. He waited for them to leave. Bai Yunj looked at Huashidu and tugged at his sleeve. Brother? Seeing that his reaction was still cold, Bai Yunj's eyelids twitched. Miss Pei, are you going to participate? Su Yu asked excitedly and teased. However, Miss Pei has so many friends. You should play this kind of game often, right? Then haven't I met my match? Bai Yunj looked at him with a faint smile. She had long been unhappy that Su Yu had asked Huashidu out for no reason. Mr. Su, you're too polite. How can I compare to your skills that you exchanged for your height? Su Yu, who had been exposed again, was speechless. What did she mean? She couldn't bear to scold that person and vented her anger on him. In the end, Bai Yunj still participated, although her gaze was always on Huashidu. Today, Bai Yunj's luck wasn't very good. She had drawn a dare in the first round. It was for Bai Yunj to sing a song with someone of the opposite sex. Bai Yunj had just frowned when Su Yu felt the cold gaze of the people around Bai Yunj sweeping over him. Same sex. I'm wrong. Same sex. Su Yu immediately admitted defeat. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. He thought that Master Du would be able to hold on for at least a few days. He didn't expect the slap to come so quickly. I'll drink. Bai Yunj was not in the mood to sing, so she picked up the glass of wine and drank it in one gulp. Then, continue. Su Yu's eyelids twitched. He didn't expect Bai Yunj to drink such a high alcohol content glass without blushing. Midway, Bai Yunj seemed to be coaxing a certain someone the entire time. The two of them were whispering to each other as if no one else was around. Bai Yunj didn't notice that one of the women sneered and said in a strange tone, "It's really rare to see someone so attached." As soon as she finished speaking, Su Yu could already feel the impact of these words. He looked at Huashidu nervously. However, he didn't expect that the next person to be drawn would be Huashidu. The game requirement: both of them eat a chocolate bar. The atmosphere was cold. Bai Yunj pursed her lips when she saw Huashidu actually reach out and casually pick up a chocolate bar. She was one step faster and held his hand. Huashidu. Chapter 1087. The man looked up and met her eyes. Even the light in the depths of his eyes was hidden. You're not letting go? Bai Yunj had been coaxing him for a long time, but when she heard such a casual sentence she was instantly angered. Very soon, Bai Yunj let go of his hand. She did not intend to continue serving this man. Her beautiful eyes curved. All right then, Mr. Hua, take your time. With that said, Bai Yunj casually took a few chocolate bars from his hand and took a bite of the chocolate bar. The chocolate tastes good. With that said, Su Yu saw that Bai Yunj really dared to take a few chocolate bars. Without looking at her, he turned around and walked towards the door. Suyu had already started to imagine how dark Hoshidu's expression would be. But then, no one expected it. The man suddenly grabbed Bei Yunji's wrist and pulled her back. Before Bei Yunji could react, she looked up. The man suddenly bent down and gently bit the chocolate bar in her mouth. Bei Yunji's body froze. The few chocolate bars in her hand were crushed and fell to the ground. Just as she regained her senses, Bei Yunji suddenly bumped into the man's dark gaze. Faced with such a situation, Bei Yunji's experience was zero, but the man was like a natural hunter. Faced with Bei Yunji's stiffness and absent-mindedness, he suddenly pressed her palm neither lightly nor heavily as if he was punishing her, but also as if he was reminding her to focus. He bit the chocolate bar an inch closer. And Bei Yunji could feel that the aggressive aura was far more than that. Along with that, the man's fingers caressed her palm, intentionally or unintentionally, making her feel hot all over. After regaining her senses again, Bei Yunji's ears turned hot from the man's fixed gaze. She subconsciously wanted to retreat. However, the man quickly grabbed the back of her neck with one hand, not giving her any chance to retreat. At this moment, when Bei Yunji looked up again, the man was already close to her. His breath mingled ambiguously, and his lips seemed to be close enough to touch hers, however. The man did not get any closer to bite this most ambiguous game-ending point. Instead, he gently pinched the back of the girl's neck, which made Bei Yunji weak all over. She subconsciously understood his coaxing and hinting. Without hesitation, she approached him in a reckless and naive manner and gently bit into the last bit of biscuit. Her lips also lightly touched the man's warm thin lips. The man let out a low laugh of pleasure from his throat. He smoothed the hair on the back of her head. Good girl? 3 seconds later. Bei Yunji licked her lips as if she hadn't had enough, but she happened to notice the gazes around her. He was too careless. She was so seduced by the D*MN man that she forgot about the onlookers around her. At this moment, no one dared to kick up a fuss. After all, the main character was the Hua family. Suyu glanced at the woman who had just spoken ill of Bei Yunji. His expression was ugly. Then he looked at Hoshidu and could not help but laugh. This person had been completely defeated. It was just a casual remark, yet he took it so seriously. I'm going out to take a breather. Even Bei Yunji could not ignore the meaningful gazes on the scene. After Bei Yunji left, someone drank too much and teased. Master Du will be pulled down from his pedestal one day? Aren't you afraid of being a hero's mound? These words were too bold, so much so that everyone was afraid of Hoshidu's reaction. But they did not want to. The man actually answered. Chapter 1088. However, it seemed like he was deliberately saying it for someone to hear. The man curled his lips, picked up the cigarette on the ashtray and tapped the ash lightly. His peach blossom eyes curled up lazily and bewitchingly. I'll gladly endure the hardship under your skirt. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone present fell silent and could not recover from their shock for a long time. This sentence gave people a strong sense of shock. Who would have thought that there would be someone who could make the Hua family's man willing to work for her? At this moment, the girl who had been gossiping earlier had turned completely pale. Her fingers were clenched tightly on the back of her other hand. There were too many people in the industry who admired Hoshidu, but everyone knew that this man was unattainable. No one could pull him down from his pedestal. Hence, like others, she quickly dismissed the idea. However, she did not expect to see a beautiful girl being so bold as to be intimate with Hoshidu today. Although the girl was coaxing him, she could tell that Hoshidu treated Bei Yunji differently. That was why she could not help but say those words. She was indignant. However, she was timid and did not dare to approach such an unreachable man. And now, the unreachable man in everyone's eyes was willing to bow down to another woman in front of everyone. The game didn't continue either. Bei Yunji sat at the bar counter. She did not notice why there were fewer and fewer people in the bar before midnight. She leaned her head with one hand and closed her eyes sleepily. Outside the glass window, Yu Jilin had not left yet. He sat in the driver's seat and watched as Bei Yunji fell asleep bit by bit. His heart skipped a beat and he got out of the car. He did not know why, but when he saw Bei Yunji alone in the bar, he wanted to wait outside the bar. At the entrance of the bar, just as he pushed open the door, he looked up and saw a handsome man sitting beside Bei Yunji. It was the man in the private room. Hoshidu glanced at the wine bottle beside Bei Yunji and frowned. He then looked up at Tseng-Su. Is this wine? Bei Yunji had a good tolerance for alcohol and he had never seen her drunk. Tseng-Su immediately said, It's Dr. Luo. Dr. Luo said that he wanted to give Miss Pei a dose of medicine. Luo Xie's original words were to quickly give Bei Yunj the medicine. But Sung Su didn't have the guts. He could only secretly whisper into the wine. The man was silent. What do you think is the use of drugs mixed in wine? Sung Su was so anxious that he stuttered. Master, how could he have thought so much? He couldn't just ask Bei Yunj if she wanted some medicine, right? Moreover, Miss Pei didn't know that Master Du knew about her illness. Therefore, when he saw that today was a good opportunity, he immediately acted. Huashidu glanced at him indifferently and threw the wine bottle away. Sung Su was also pulled away by Zhou. Huashidu sat beside Bei Yunj. Seeing that the young lady looked good when she was sleeping, he couldn't help but smile. But soon he remembered that Bei Yunj had been chatting happily with a strange man in this exact spot. Bei Yunj. The man shouted casually. Bei Yunj didn't know if it was a reflex response. She grunted in a nasal voice and didn't wake up. The man reached out and touched her head. He asked unhurriedly, "Did you have fun with others today?" Bei Yunj almost fell down along with Huashidu's hand. "You came to the bar alone with an unfamiliar man." The man deliberately pinched Bei Yunj's face childishly and said calmly, "You need to be taught a lesson." End of this chapter. Chapter 1089. Bei Yunj's eyes flickered slightly as she glanced at this computing tutor. "It's me." The tutor's smile froze and he looked at Su Jihuan and the rest. It was obvious that Bei Yunj looked the youngest in this team. "It's really you?" The moment the tutor finished asking, Wang Huiying's slightly dark expression returned to normal. Wang Huiying suddenly said, "Miss Pei is very capable. You fixed the bugs in the 3rd to 9th battle zones, right?" She continued, "But aren't you violating the competition rules by doing this? The other contestants can't get in to get points." With that said, everyone's eyes were focused on Bei Yunj. It's a loophole in her cultivation? No wonder there are no loopholes at all. Damn, so she didn't even enter the 3rd battle zone. Isn't this too unfair? If she fixed the loopholes, how are we going to get points? That's right. Teacher, she's cheating. The moment everyone thought of Bei Yunj's points, their mentality became twisted. They gritted their teeth in anger. At this moment, Su Jihuan said angrily, "Wang Huiying, don't slander me. Yunj clearly left a loophole." The rest of the people laughed coldly. Left a loophole? Alright, where is the loophole? Why can't anyone enter? Now, everyone suspected that Bei Yunj was in the battle zone herself, so she simply fixed all the bugs. The computing tutor also frowned. After exchanging glances with the other tutors, he asked Bei Yunj, "You left a bug?" Bei Yunj drank her soda and said slowly, I left 3 bugs in each battle zone. In fact, starting from the 3rd battle zone, they only prepared 2 bugs in each battle zone." "Were you lying to?" "Teacher, since she's stubborn, let her attack it herself." The girl behind Wang Huiying laughed coldly. "If she can't attack it, let her get out of the competition." "No, their team is in the same team. They have to withdraw from the competition." Hu Qingzhong and Bian Xiaotan, who had left Bei Yunj's team previously, sounded even more unfriendly. "That's right. So what if she fixed it? Were you lying to?" The tutor furrowed his eyebrows. Actually, no matter what, he didn't want to miss this good seedling. Even if Bei Yunj lied in public. However, just as the tutor was about to say something, Bei Yunj's smile did not reach her eyes. "What? If I go in, will you all get lost?" "You." The girl behind Wang Huiying gritted her teeth and sneered, So be it. Elder Ma, you heard it too." She said it herself. Bei Yunj pursed her lips and walked over to the computer without waiting for her supervisor to say anything. The sound of the keyboard attracted everyone's attention. But not long after, everyone saw the interface open. "What's going on?" "1, 2. The person beside him counted the number of people and couldn't control his volume. 7 battle zones opened at the same time? The instructor's expression also changed. He looked at Bei Yunj in disbelief. "Did this girl really leave a bug?" A computer player murmured, "I remember that it's possible to fix bugs in the war zone in the international competition, as long as the player leaves clues. So, Bei Yunj didn't break the rules." However, it wasn't that difficult for top players like them to find bugs in normal competitions. But Bei Yunj's bug was not even discovered by the tutor. This time, the girl beside Wang Huiying turned pale and her voice trembled. "How is this possible? Have you thought about how you're going to get lost?" Her lazy and smiling voice had a hint of hostility. P.S. Good night, end of chapter. Chapter 1090. Who knew? The man slowly retracted his gaze and denied it lazily. No. Bei Yunj. Before preparing to go to the hospital for a physical examination, Bei Yunj finished her breakfast and sat under Huashidu's sofa to read documents. After the weather turned cold, the carpet on the floor was replaced by a Persian carpet. Bei Yunj preferred to lean on the coffee table with one hand and glance at the man's side profile out of habit. After a while, Bei Yunj heard Huashidu talking to someone on the phone. The other party should be an older elder. Before hanging up the phone, he happily introduced his niece who had returned from studying overseas to Huashidu. Huashidu blocked him without revealing anything. He only said that he had a delicate girl at home and was not in the mood to care about others. He did not name him, but the other party was a smart person and quickly understood what Huashidu meant. It turned out that this person from the Hua family was already hiding a mistress. You're not going to continue reading? Huashidu saw the little girl staring at him. I'm done. Bei Yunj leaned her head against the sofa, her black hair falling loosely. As usual, she played with the man's slender fingers in boredom. Huashidu was also used to Bei Yunj scratching his palm a few times like a cat when she had nothing to do. She also played happily. Even Tseng Su was numb when he saw this scene. Bei Yunj suddenly asked, "Brother, do you have a drinking session today?" She heard it over the phone just now. "Yes, I'll be back later." Huashidu did not even look up. As soon as he finished speaking, there was no sound in the living room. Bei Yunj looked at Huashidu's serious side profile. When the man was working, his sleeves were also rolled up elegantly, revealing his beautifully muscled forearms. His pale-colored pupils were less frivolous, but they were even more attractive. After a while, Huashidu felt an itch on the back of his hand. He turned around and did not know what the little girl was doodling on his hand. However, he did not resist. He just wanted her to be happy. It was only when Huashidu finished reading all the information and left with Tseng Su that he remembered what he was doing. Huashidu looked down and saw that Bei Yunj had drawn a watch on his wrist. Tseng Su was also caught off guard when he saw Bei Yunj's masterpiece. Miss Pei was as brave as ever. There was no one more arrogant than Miss Pei. And then, what made Tseng Su's eyelids twitch wildly was that the man who had been carelessly doodled on his hand was not angry at all. Instead, he suddenly laughed. Even Tseng Su could sense the pleasure in the man's chuckle. "Master, do you?" Tseng Su gradually could not understand Huashidu's emotional fluctuations. Huashidu slowly untied the expensive watch in his hand and threw it into the groove of the car door. When they were in the car, she would admire her child's drawing skills from time to time. Tseng Su, it was really over. Miss Pei must have cast a goose spell on Master Du at the drinking party. The man didn't bother to hide the watch on his wrist. Everyone who saw it had the same question in their minds. Who had the guts to draw a watch on Master Du's hand? "Shidu, your watch?" One of them was an uncle who had taken care of Huashidu in the past. Everyone's gaze landed on Huashidu. Who knew? This was the first time they saw it today. Huashidu's lips curled up. Even his tone was indulgent. "Someone at home reminded me to go home on time." At this moment, Tseng Su realized that the time on the clock was exactly 10:30. Chapter 1091. Elder Ma's anger made the entire place fall into silence. But in the next moment, Su Jihuan muttered beside Bei Yunj, "Yunj, don't think too much. There's a reason why they hate people who come from computing backgrounds. The former heir of Confederation 191 was abducted by someone who dabbled in computing." These words instantly enraged Elder Ma. Su Jihuan. It was not hard to suspect that if Su Jihuan wasn't from the Su family, he would definitely be killed by Confederation 191. It was simply a slap to the face of Confederation 191. "I didn't say anything wrong." Su Jihuan did not admit defeat and his tone was filled with disdain. At the mention of the former heir, Wang Huiying's expression did not look too good either. As for the rest of the people present, they actually did not know much about the internal situation of Confederation 191. Especially these old matters that had been hidden by Confederation 191 in the early years. In the end, Bei Yunj's team was the first to be taken away. On the way, Bei Yunj asked casually, "What's the name of the former heir of Confederation 191? Shernani." After Su Jihuan finished speaking, he realized that something was wrong and immediately said, "Yunj, it's better not to mention this. They don't know your identity." Bei Yunj was silent for a moment. "Then what's the name of that computing student?" "I'm not sure. Anyway, he should be a teacher hired by Confederation 191, right? I heard that he's from our country." Hearing this, Bei Yunj felt that this person was most likely Nani. Bei Yunj was speechless. No wonder he hated computing so much. If the people from Confederation 191 knew that Bei Yunj was Nani's disciple and was even sent here to look for information, they would probably die on the spot from anger. So, Wang Huiying is sure Nani's junior? Bei Yunj's eyes darkened slightly. Of course not. Sure Nani is the former heir of Confederation 191. And Wang Huiying's father, Wang Hui, suddenly passed away before he married Sure Nani. Perhaps the heavens are jealous of talent. After Su Jihuan sighed, he laughed coldly. Later, Wang Hui won the position of the heir of Confederation 191 with the excuse of loving his deceased wife deeply. However, after so many years, the Sure family did not let him inherit the laboratory. Su Jihuan's eyes were filled with ridicule. Love his deceased wife? What a joke. Wang Huiying's mother was the adopted daughter of the Sure family. A woman who climbed into her brother-in-law's bed. Suddenly, the tutor behind her walked over with a dark face. Su Jihuan, what are you talking about now? Su Jihuan shrugged and didn't say anything more. On the way, Bei Yunj glanced at Su Jihuan. Do you like Sure Nani a lot? Sure Nani is a rare talent. Su Jihuan lowered her head. It's just a pity that such a person has to have her blood sucked out by a despicable father and daughter after death. Every time she heard someone call Wang Huiying little Sure Nani, she couldn't help but feel nauseous. How could there be such a shameless person in this world? Bei Yunj was deep in thought. The next day, after passing the pre-competition assessment, classes began. Yunj, do you have a pen and paper? I didn't bring. Su Jihuan said guiltily. Bei Yunj immediately threw the notebook that Zhou Yu had given her to Su Jihuan. Bei Yunj was not interested in listening to such simple content repeatedly. Instead, she took the iPad and tried to enter the library system of Confederation 191. Bei Yunj, what are you doing? The tutor, who had been greeted by Wang Huiying a long time ago, immediately screamed when she saw Bei Yunj's distraction. Am I too simple, or do you know everything? Why are you so arrogant? End of this chapter. Chapter 1092. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched as she looked up at him. What are you looking at? Inexplicably, the tutor felt goosebumps all over his body from Bei Yunj's stare. But then he said sternly, Confederation 191 doesn't need arrogant contestants. Go to the library right now and sort out the information. If you don't go, you can withdraw from the competition now. Su Jihuan panicked when she heard this. According to Bei Yunj's temper, she definitely wouldn't keep her. But then, Bei Yunj stood up and raised her eyebrows lazily. Teacher, how many days can I tidy up? The tutor's face turned green with anger. In the future, go to the library for my classes. I don't want to see you in the classroom again. The corners of Bei Yunj's lips curled up as she lazily picked up the iPad. Sure. Before she left, Bei Yunj considerately closed the classroom door. The contestants? Was this person crazy? What the tutor was talking about now was probably related to the competition later. It was equivalent to the scope of the exam. She really went to the library to sort out the information? She's really from a computer science background. She doesn't understand physics. Wang Man gloated. Wang Huiying smiled faintly. It's normal. Not everyone has the energy to do two scientific research directions at the same time. Yeah, she's not as good as you, Huiying. Huiying, you're a real genius. Wang Man said enviously. Then she smiled to vent her anger. By the way, if the old monster in the library is still there, Bei Yunj would probably be scared half to death. When Wang Huiying heard that person, coldness flashed through her eyes. In Confederation 191, everyone respectfully called her Mississippi. Only that old monster didn't know how to appreciate favors. Sooner or later she would drive that old monster out. The library in Confederation 191 was not like the library in Yunqing. It had a bright dome and a spiral staircase that reached the top. There were also countless rare books in the library. Bei Yunj looked around and saw a transparent elevator. It should go straight to the top of the library. Not long after, Bei Yunj flipped through a few books on the first floor and went up to the second floor. About half an hour later, Bei Yunj arrived at the fifth floor. There was a hint of excitement in his eyes. Suddenly, a hoarse and unpleasant voice rang out from behind him. What are you doing? Bei Yunj turned around and saw an old man whose face was burned beyond recognition. His back was hunched and there was not much gray hair left on his head. Even his scalp was faintly burned, and his gaze gave people a gloomy and uncomfortable feeling. Let me organize the information. Bei Yunj slowly closed the book. You're lying. Who are you? The old man's voice was hoarse and unpleasant to the ears. His gloomy eyes were like those of a ferocious ghost. In fact, it was very easy for people to panic. I'm a trainee. I didn't listen to the lecture and was chased here by my teacher. Bei Yunji's eyes fell on the thing in his hand. Are you repairing books? The old monster froze. It's none of your business. Old mister, this thing must have been repaired for a long time, right? Actually, I can help you. Bei Yunji's words made the old monster sneer. You. I've repaired it. Can I have a look at this book? Bei Yunji picked up the book in his hand. The old monster looked at it and unconsciously narrowed his eyes. Can you really understand this book? It's a bit interesting, but the description is quite immature. Bei Yunji said unhurriedly, it's a book from more than 20 years ago, right? End of chapter. Chapter 1093. The old monster raised his head abruptly and stared at Bei Yunji. After a long time he said, What's your relationship with Confederation 191? Bei Yunji's lips curled into a smile that did not reach her eyes. Nothing. The old monster was silent for a moment before turning to leave. Come with me. Walking downstairs, Bei Yunji came to a place that looked like a front desk. She also saw some tools to repair books inside. If you can't fix it, I'll get the people from Confederation 191 to chase you out. The old monster was very heartless. Bei Yunji raised her eyebrows and sat to the side to put on her gloves. She said slowly, I didn't say that I could restore this book. But I can restore the contents of the book. You. After being deceived, the old monster's eyes widened in anger. What's so important about a book? The original owner wants to preserve the contents of this book more. After Bei Yunji put on her thin glasses, she slowly flipped through the old book. The old monster was stunned when he saw Bei Yunji write down the missing content of the book bit by bit. Can you really understand this book? Yes. The old monster continued to ask, Are you a physics student? I'm a computer science student. When the old monster heard this, he was first stunned, then suppressed his anger. There aren't many good people who study computer science. Bei Yunji, fine. As Bei Yunji wrote the information, she said leisurely, Then do you want me to find a few good people who study physics to help you restore the contents of the book? The old monster, it was not that he had not tried, but in the entire Confederation 191, only this girl in front of him could restore Miss Nanyi's book. Little girl, are you really a computer science student? The old monster remembered that Miss Nanyi was in her 30s when she wrote this book. But this little girl looked to be at most 20 years old, and she was a computer science student? Yes. Does the author of this book have any other books? Bei Yunji continued, I want to understand her other books so that I can be more accurate. When the old monster heard this, he looked suspiciously at Bei Yunji's restored content. But not long after, his turbid eyes shook. The content that this girl had restored was actually the same as what Miss Nanny had written back then? The old monster suddenly looked at Bei Yunji. This little girl's talent was too terrifying. Even Miss Nanny couldn't compare to her. But if Miss Nanny was still alive, she would definitely want to take this girl as her disciple and pass down her lifetime's research. The old monster's eyes dimmed for a moment, but soon he suddenly raised his head and said hoarsely, Little girl, are you willing to take a dead man as your master? Bei Yunji's hands trembled. What kind of question is this? Soon Bei Yunji said, Old mister, stop being so superstitious. When she was alive, she always wanted to find a talented disciple. I want to help her fulfill her long-cherished wish. Then please consider Wang Huiying. Although Bei Yunji felt that the author's book was interesting, she also had a master. But unexpectedly, when the old monster heard this, his tone was full of sarcasm. How can she be worthy of being Miss Nanyi's disciple? She's just the product of a genetic experiment. Bei Yunji looked up at him. Genetic experiment? The old monster laughed. Little girl, you haven't heard of it, right? That girl is just an experiment. She's different from someone like you who is favored by God. P.S. Good night, end of chapter. Chapter 1094. Bei Yunji didn't say anything. She just continued to read the book. Although genetic experiments were rare, Bei Yunji had met a living example in her previous life. She just didn't expect to see it again in this life. In her previous life, Bei Yunji's mother, Meng Liang, had a rival since they were in school. Later, she became Meng Liang's colleague, Professor Zhu of genetics. Professor Zhu loved to compete with Meng Ying since she was young. However, she had never won. What made Professor Zhu's mentality even more twisted was that Meng Liang was naughty and mischievous when she was young. She didn't focus on her studies, but every time her grades would be slightly higher than hers. This made Professor Zhu strongly believe that it was because Meng Liang was smarter than her. Therefore, Professor Zhu had a crazy idea. She and her husband secretly conducted a genetic experiment. The subject of the experiment was her own daughter. She wanted her daughter to be a genius. Since she couldn't beat Meng Liang, her daughter must beat Meng Liang's child for her. When Professor Zhu's daughter was 3 years old, she was told that her daughter was a 1 in a million genius. Professor Zhu was so excited that she immediately arranged for her daughter and Bai Yunj to enter kindergarten at the same time. She couldn't wait to see how her daughter beat Meng Liang's daughter. However, what she didn't expect was that Bai Yunj was much more talented than Meng Liang. She learned to read at the age of 2. Not only was she sensitive to numbers, but she also inherited her grandfather's skills in music. She could distinguish the piano keys just by listening to the sound. Later on, no matter how Professor Zhu trained her genius daughter, she was still inferior to Bai Yunj. This made Professor Zhu feel bitter and resentful. She also complained and scolded her daughter. A few years later, Professor Zhu realized that there was a serious problem with her genetic experiment. Her daughter would age faster than ordinary people. She would start to have wrinkles at the age of 14 or 15. Her testosterone levels would be out of whack, and her immune system would be severely weakened. She would often be hospitalized. This was the after effect of the genetic experiment. Professor Zhu started to regret it. Compared to her daughter being outstanding and 1 in a million, she wanted her daughter to live a long life. Therefore, Professor Zhu started to think of ways to fix everything. However, fate was always in the cycle of karma. When Professor Zhu's daughter found out that she was just a product of her mother's genetic experiment, she chose to jump off a building and end her life. Bai Yunj's eyes darkened. The pen in her hand paused and a black dot appeared on the tip of the pen. "What are you thinking about?" "Focus." The old monster reminded him anxiously. Bai Yunj lazily came back to her senses and continued to write. "You don't seem to be interested in genetic experiments," the old monster suddenly said. He chuckled again. "Such a special experiment can greatly improve the progress of human society." Bai Yunj's bright eyes were calm. She said casually, "Shouldn't a researcher have a sense of awe? Humans created civilization, so they should respect life." The old monster was stunned. Not long after, he slowly said, "Little girl, someone taught you very well." Even though he was in the world's top laboratory, he had never heard anyone say such words. "Little girl, are you really unwilling to be Miss Nanyi's disciple?" the old monster asked insistently. His eyes were fixed on her. "What if I can let you inherit Confederation 191? Bai Yunj's eyebrows twitched. She glanced at him. "Sorry, I already have a master." End of chapter. Chapter 1095. The old monster frowned unhappily. He didn't expect Bai Yunj to be so tactless. "Could it be that your master can compare to Miss Nani?" Bai Yunj. Before getting the information, Bai Yunj didn't intend to tell anyone that she was Nani's disciple. Otherwise she might be chased out. "What's your name?" the old monster asked. Bai Yunj. The old monster was silent for a moment. "My name is Oz." Bai Yunj couldn't help but ask, "How did Nani die?" Oz's gloomy voice was hoarse and unpleasant. "This has nothing to do with you." "Okay." Bai Yunj flipped through the little content and replied lazily, "I can finish repairing this book in about a week." "You can't take these books out." Oz looked like he was guarding against a thief, his eyes wary. "Okay." Bai Yunj just curled her lips. "Then can I flip through the books here?" "Oz, up to you." "Then can I play on your computer for a while?" "Oz." Didn't this person think that he was being insatiable? Suddenly, a voice sounded from the door. "Oz." Oz's eyes darkened and he left after saying that. "You can play on the computer here, but don't make any sound." Bai Yunj raised her eyebrows and glanced at the black figure not far away. She had no interest in prying into other people's privacy. "In the library's rest area." "Is that your disciple? After so many years you're finally willing to accept a disciple?" The person who came had white hair, but he was in good spirits. "She's not." Oz stretched out his skinny hand and used his long sharp nails to poke at the wick. He could clearly hear the sizzling sound of something burning, but he didn't seem to be in pain at all. The white-haired old man wanted to say something but hesitated. Looking at Oz's gloomy appearance, he also didn't feel good. Back then, in Nani's words, Oz was an unforgettable handsome young man. But now, because of Nani, he had become like this. "Then why are you suddenly willing to interact with others?" The white-haired old man laughed. Oz's tone was cold. You'll have to ask your people. A student who doesn't listen in class actually rushed to me. The white-haired old man, so she was a student from the training camp. I'll get someone to bring her back later. As soon as the white-haired old man finished speaking, Oz interrupted him. There's no need. She's not that annoying. Hearing this, the white-haired old man was suddenly interested in that student. After so many years, Oz's personality has become more and more withdrawn, and almost no one can enter his eyes. He wasn't averse to interact with strangers? Then we'll leave her in our laboratory? The white-haired old man smiled. Why are you looking for me? Oz asked impatiently. As soon as he finished speaking. The atmosphere there was a moment. I promised Wang Hui that as long as Wang Huiying can get first place in this year's training camp, I will relinquish my authority. In an instant, Oz slammed the table and stood up. His ugly face was ferocious and his hoarse voice was gloomy. What did you say? Yuns BTSS. STS, you want to let a person who killed your daughter take over Confederation 191? Oz, I'll say it again. Don't spout nonsense if you don't have evidence. Master Shi pursed his lips. Nani is dead. Confederation 191 needs a new successor. Although Wang Hui isn't qualified, Wang Huiying is a 1 in a million talent. Moreover, Wang Huiying's mother is also a member of the Shi family. End of chapter. Chapter 1096. Hearing this, Us smiled. I was wondering how a despicable person like Wang Hui would dare to get that adopted daughter pregnant. It turns out that he had calculated that you would give up your power because of this relationship. I've already made a decision. I'm just informing you now. The head of the Shi family was silent for a moment before he looked deeply at Oz. Confederation 191 is already declining. Wang Hui has also pressured me for a long time. If I don't give up my power, he will take away some of the core researchers and Wang Huiying. The laboratory needs a genius like Wang Huiying. Her future will bring Confederation 191 back to its peak. But she's just a test subject. Oz was furious. The head of the Shi family's tone was calm. But you have to admit that only Wang Huiying can inherit Nani's mantle. Unless you can find someone more suitable than Wang Huiying. Otherwise, once this competition is over, I'll give up my power. With that said, the head of the Shi family turned and left. Oz's expression was terrible. Dad, why are you here personally? Wang Huiying asked in surprise when she saw Wang Hui. Wang Hui smiled and said, Huiying, Dad has something to talk to you about. Wang Huiying said, Dad, tell me. No matter what, you have to get first place in this competition. Wang Hui's tone was unprecedentedly excited. Huiying, your dad's hope. As long as you can get first place in the training camp, your grandfather will completely give up his power to me. I've been waiting for this day for too many years. You mustn't disappoint Dad. Wang Huiying's tone was weak. Don't worry, Dad. How many times have I gotten first place since I was young? She said disdainfully, Grandpa should have given up his power a long time ago. Compared to my mother, he has always liked his biological daughter, Nani. He has never admitted my identity to the public. Huiying, as long as you can win, you will be the one and only elder young miss of Confederation 191. Wang Hui's eyes were determined. When the time comes, Confederation 191 will be ours. A few days passed. In the classroom. Yunj, look at the results of our competition this time. It's almost done. Su Jihuan grabbed Bei Yunj's hand and said excitedly, when the time comes, we might be able to enter the top 5. Pei Yunj raised an eyebrow and walked towards Su Jihuan. She found that these three people's standards were indeed not bad. Especially that Tang Yi. You don't need me to do anything? Bei Yunj asked. Su Jihuan patted his chest. No need, you can just lie down and win. Bei Yunj smiled. She didn't plan to get a good ranking. She just wanted to get the information as soon as possible. Bei Yunj and Tang Yi analyzed their semi-finished products and made a few suggestions before returning to the library. On the other hand, Tang Yi could clearly feel that Pei Yunj's suggestion was more valuable than the previous mentor's suggestion. The library. Seeing Bei Yunj walking around in front of him every day, Oz couldn't help but ask, aren't you a contestant? Why don't you go to the competition? My teammate said that I can just lie down and win. After Bei Yunj finished repairing the books, he had been flipping through the books on the 4th and 5th floors. He didn't care about the competition at all. He was really crazy. At first he actually thought that she could win against Wang Huiying. However, when Oz went downstairs angrily and wanted to check the information of the other contestants, Bei Yunj suddenly received a call. Yunj, come quickly. Something happened. Su Jihuan was so anxious that she was about to cry. There's actually a written test in the second round of the competition, but there's less than an hour before the deadline. End of this chapter. Chapter 1097. What written test? Bei Yunj paused. I don't know either. No one informed us about this at all. How could this be? Su Jihuan was extremely anxious. I heard from the other teams that their team spent an entire day on the written test alone. Besides, the results of the written test account for 40% of the total results. With that said, Bei Yunj heard Su Jihuan talking to Tang Yi softly and thought that she wouldn't be able to hear her. Brother Yi, it doesn't matter if Yunj knows about this or not. Why don't we let her continue playing? Anyway, she's a computing contestant and can't help. Bei Yunj was speechless. Tang Ye's eyelid twitched and he quickly took the phone. Yunj, why don't you come over and we'll do it together? Send me a website address first. Bei Yunj walked to the front desk, turned on the computer and logged into the written test website. She found that there were about 300 questions. Yunj, these questions are quite difficult. Let's do it together. Before Tang Yi could finish speaking, Bei Yunj's eyes darkened and she immediately said, It's too late. I'll do these questions. You guys continue to complete the report. With that said, Bei Yunj hung up the call. On the other hand, Su Jihuan regained her senses and felt suffocated. Brother Yi, are we really letting Master Pei do this alone? This written test accounts for 40% of the results. If the results of the written test were bad, they might be eliminated in the second round. Tang Yi pursed his lips and could only be firm in the end. Let's go and complete the report first. But, Su Jihuan wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, she could only lower her head and sigh dejectedly. This time they were finished. The second round of the written test? Oz glanced at Bei Yunj and then at his watch. There's only 50 minutes left. There are nearly 300 questions. How did you finish it? Before he could finish asking. In the next moment, he saw Bei Yunj staring at the screen with all her attention. The speed at which she was doing the questions was shocking. The speed at which she was doing the questions did not seem like she was doing it seriously. Could it be that this lass was writing blindly? Oz frowned and walked behind Bei Yunj to watch. However, before he could even finish reading the questions, Bei Yunj would move the keyboard and erase the questions. Oz's eyes hurt and he could only step aside to observe Bei Yunj. If Bei Yunj had been working on the questions seriously, she wouldn't have been able to concentrate on the questions for an hour. But after more than half an hour, Oz barely saw Bei Yunj move. Her eyes were only fixed on the screen. Oz's eyes were dim and inexplicably lost. That's true. How could he finish the Confederation 191 written test in 50 minutes? No one else would be able to do this. 50 minutes later. Bei Yunj also finished answering the questions and submitted her written answers in the last 3 minutes. She unconsciously heaved a sigh of relief. She closed her eyes and lowered her head, her fingers slowly massaging the back of her neck. Suddenly, Oz's gloating voice sounded. It seems that once the results come out, you'll have to leave Confederate 191. Before Bei Yunj could speak, she saw a text message from Su Jihuan. Su Jihuan, Master Pei, are you done? How did it go? When Bei Yunj saw it, she raised her eyebrows lazily. Oz, let's make a bet. Oz asked, what are we betting on? Let's bet on whether our team can get into the top 3. Bei Yunj's lips curved as she picked up her phone. Su Jihuan received the message. There's no choice. We can only rely on you guys. Su Jihuan, end of chapter. Chapter 1098. Su Jihuan's mind suddenly went blank. We're done for. What do you think? Du Chaoya and Tang Ye's eyes fell on it. Su Jihuan smiled stiffly. Maybe we can only take a gamble. Tang Yi and Du Chaoya, after that bet, Oz found that Bei Yunj had been reading on the 6th floor for 3 consecutive days. Oz couldn't help but ask, didn't you want to get into the top 3? Why are you holed up here? They can do it. Bei Yunj turned a page and leaned lazily on the floor. Oz, don't you have a cushion or something? The floor is a bit hard. Oz's face darkened. I don't have time to serve you like an ancestor. Fortunately, he didn't let this girl become Miss Nani's disciple. Although this girl was talented, she was too confident. Sooner or later she would suffer a big loss. Oz couldn't help but mock. Little girl, don't cry when you lose. Time passed. It was finally the day of the announcement of the results. Bei Yunj had just sat down when she realized that Su Jihuan and the other two had dark circles under their eyes. Her eyelids twitched. What are you guys doing? Su Jihuan was still sleepy and her eyes were dull. Brother Yi insisted that we change according to your suggestions, so we stayed up all night for 2 days. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. She didn't expect them to work so hard. This is the semi-finals. Only 9 teams will advance. Su Jihuan clutched her little heart and continued, I hope we're lucky and can advance. 9th is fine too. At this moment, Wang Huiying, who came in, happened to hear Su Jihuan's words. Her lips curled and a trace of slyness and ridicule flashed across her eyes. A few days ago, she happened to meet the instructor in charge of the written exam and asked her to help spread the news of the written exam to all the teams. Therefore, in order to get Su Jihuan and Bei Yunj out of the competition early, she specially sent someone to inform Su Jihuan and the others on the last day. She just wanted to see Su Jihuan and the others powerless and have their willpower collapse. The team member beside Wang Huiying laughed. I heard that Su Jihuan's team only found out about the written exam in the last hour of the written exam. It seemed that no matter how well they did, they might not be able to enter the top 9. Originally, I was worried that they would be a threat to us. When Wang Huiying heard the last sentence, her eyes darkened. She smiled and turned her head. Qi, do you think anyone can be compared to me? Seng Qi smiled stiffly. No. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the crowd. Look, isn't that the head of the Shi family from Confederate 191? My goodness, Patriarch Shi is here in person? Everyone was shocked, but they soon guessed the reason. Wang Huiying was the heir's daughter and the little Shi Nani of Confederation 191. Master Shi was probably here to see Wang Huiying take first place. Wang Huiying also straightened her back and couldn't help but smile. She had been waiting for this day for too long. Patriarch Shi is finally blind? He actually came to watch Wang Huiying's competition. Su Jihuan couldn't believe it. Next, Patriarch Shi smiled and said, Thank you all for coming to participate in the competition. I'm just here to observe the competition today, so don't worry. After saying this, coincidentally the tutor arrived late and was still panting. What's going on? Why is a tutor late? Patriarch Shi frowned. I'm not. The tutor's expression was ugly and he didn't know what to say. But when he thought of the results of the team he had just run back to check, he couldn't help but feel his scalp go numb. End of chapter. Chapter 1099. Hurry up and announce the results of the competition. Patriarch Shi frowned. The mentor wanted to say something but stopped. He couldn't help but glance at Wang Huiying. But before he could announce the rankings, the old man next to him snatched his report card. Old Han, what are you waiting for? Let me do it. Mentor Han's face darkened. Before he could speak, he was pushed aside by the old man. I'm sure everyone can feel the difficulty of this competition. There's no other way. There are so many excellent contestants this year. We have to lower the score. The old man said happily, otherwise if the gap isn't big you won't be satisfied if you lose, right? The contestants, they finally understood. This was to lower the score for Wang Huiying's team, so they suffered along with them. Wang Huiying looked helpless. No wonder the written test is so difficult. It's Grandpa Wu's doing again. You really didn't leave me a way out. Elder Crow also smiled. If Littling can't do it, who else can? Your team is the only one with more than 30 points in the written test. Grandpa Wu is widening the gap for you. The audience was in heated discussion. What? The only one with more than 30 points? Wang Huiying is too unbelievable. Elder Crow began to announce, in this competition a total of 9 teams have advanced to the finals. The 9th place will be announced. At this moment only Mentor Han closed his eyes. He couldn't face this scene. No way? Su Jihuan almost blacked out. Are they deliberately provoking us? Bei Yunj next to her comforted, maybe the results are good. Su Jihuan's smile was very stiff. Do you think we can get 7th or 8th place? In Su Jihuan's opinion, they should be burning incense and praying that Bei Yunj could get half the written test points by answering the questions carelessly. She didn't want anything else. Bei Yunj, 9th place, Team Chui Changyi, assessment score 59. 3, Elder Crow said loudly. Everyone was in an uproar. This test was too strict. 9th place didn't even have a passing score? At this moment, only Su Jihuan and the other two's expressions changed. They looked disappointed. They didn't even get 9th place? Maybe our ranking is higher. Bei Yunj continued to comfort. But the next moment. 8th place, Sangyi Yuanhui team, assessment score 64. Su Jihuan and the other two. Was this father the world's toxic healer? Wang Huiying, who was observing this scene from the side, had a hint of ridicule in her eyes. The corners of her mouth unconsciously curled up, and her heart was completely at ease. These idiots were finally out. Wang Huiying raised her head, waiting for Elder Crow to call her name. She didn't want to. When the second place was announced, Old Crow's smile froze. He suspected that his eyes were playing tricks on him. After a while he said, "This year we didn't get second place." "No second place? What does that mean?" The contestant couldn't help but ask. 2 first-place finishers. Old Crow couldn't help but become excited after seeing the results of the 2 teams. What? 2 first places? The contestants were in an uproar, and Wang Huiying stood up abruptly, her pupils shrinking. How was this possible? How could there be 2 first places? First place, Wang Huiying's team. Elder Crow looked at everyone and announced the results that everyone wanted to know. Report summary 59, written test 32, total score 91. Everyone's mentality exploded. Damn, 91? Which team is so awesome that they can actually get the same score as Wang Huiying's team? End of chapter. Chapter 1100. It wasn't just the contestants. Even Patriarch Shi was stunned. After so many years, he had never heard of anyone who could tie with Huiying for first place. Elder Crow continued to announce, first place, Bei Yunj's team, report summary 51 written test. 40. Total score 91. Instantly, the field exploded. Did I hear wrongly? What's going on? Someone got full marks for the written test. Damn, this team is so fierce. The written test is so difficult, but their team actually got full marks? Wang Huiying's team only got 32 points. I heard that their team didn't know there was a written test at the beginning and forced it in the last hour, in an instant. The field was silent. Their team completed nearly 300 questions in an hour? One had to know that they had been doing it for several days. Even Wang Huiying's team took a full 2 days. Su Jihuan and the others were originally gloomy, but when they heard their team being called, they were all dumbfounded. 91 points? And they actually got full marks for the written test? You got full marks for the written test and the computer test? Su Jihuan turned her head and asked with difficulty. Bei Yunj chewed on the biscuit stick and said slowly, "It wasn't difficult." Su Jihuan, Tang Yi, it wasn't that he didn't look at the written test questions later. If it were him, it would probably take him 4 to 5 days to do it alone. And the other teams also completed it together with their members. But Bei Yunj completed nearly 300 questions in less than an hour alone? Our team is actually first. Su Jihuan was stunned at first, then she was extremely excited. I'm not dreaming, am I? Bei Yunj glanced at her and smiled unconsciously. At first, she didn't expect Tang Yi and the others to overturn the finished product and change it. But Wang Huiying clenched her fists, her nails digging into her flesh. She stared at Bei Yunj and the others maliciously. How could this be? Their team didn't deserve to be in the same ranking as hers? After Wang Huiying came back to her senses, she immediately looked at Patriarch Shi, only to find that Patriarch Shi was also staring at Su Jihuan and the others. She gritted her teeth and a ruthless look flashed across her eyes. How's the matter? I asked you to investigate. Patriarch Shi was still a little suspicious. It's true. Also, I found out that there was a problem with their team's information. They found out about the competition an hour before the computer test ended. The tutor braced himself and said, the person who answered the question is a girl who is not even 20 years old. Patriarch Shi was in disbelief. Alone? Even Wang Huiying couldn't finish these questions in 2 days, but someone actually finished it in an hour? He had never heard of a laboratory or a physics research institute producing such a genius. Bei Yunj. I've done a background check. There's no such person in the industry. The tutor had never thought that there would be a day when a person who wasn't even 20 years old could beat Wang Huiying in physics. This world was too crazy. Patriarch Shi took a long time to come back to his senses. What do you mean by unexpected news? The tutor was silent for a long time. It was Miss Wang. She specifically asked someone to inform their team on the last day. She probably wants Su Jihuan to be eliminated early. Patriarch Shi's eyes darkened. The library. You're a family head. Why do you keep coming to the library? Oz frowned. Did you know that there was a student who got full marks in the second round of the written exam this year? Oz glanced at him coldly and mocked. A test subject got full marks and you're here to show off to me? End of chapter. Chapter 1101. It's not Wang Huiying. As soon as Patriarch Shi finished speaking, Oz stopped reading. Isn't it quite scary? There's actually someone who's more talented than a genius in genetic experiments. Patriarch Shi was relishing in it. How can humans create miracles if they want to compete with God? Oz asked sarcastically. Patriarch Shi was speechless. This person must have been trained to change his expression, right? Patriarch Shi continued. What I didn't expect was that the person who scored full marks in the written test was actually from a computer science background. As soon as he finished speaking, Oz lost his grip on the book and dropped it. Patriarch Shi instinctively bent down to pick it up, but when he saw the content clearly he asked in shock, "Isn't this what Nanny wrote in her book? Wasn't it burned long ago? When did you recover it?" Oz snatched it away. "Someone else restored it for me." With that said, his expression was uncertain as he asked slowly, "What's the name of the person who scored full marks in the written test?" Patriarch Shi, Bei Yunj. The veins on the back of Oz's hand that was holding the book tightly were bulging, and he couldn't suppress his excitement. It was really her. Oz had seen with his own eyes how fast Bei Yunj was doing the questions. That scene made Oz's scalp tingle when he recalled it. If it was an ordinary person, it would be impossible for them to score full marks. I heard that she only took an hour to complete the written test. However, it might be a misunderstanding. Nanny couldn't have. Before Patriarch Shi could finish, Oz interrupted him. It's indeed fake. It took at most 55 minutes. What? Patriarch Shi thought of something else. Wait, how did you know? Oz pointed at the front desk next to him. She's using your lousy computer. If it wasn't for the slow computer, that girl would probably be even faster. You actually know that girl? Patriarch Shi was even more shocked. Yes. I also said that as long as she agreed to be Miss Nanyi's disciple, I would help her get the position of the successor of Confederation 191. Oz didn't feel guilty at all. Patriarch Shi, ? How could you dare to say such a thing in front of me? But she didn't agree. It's very likely that Confederation 191 is getting worse and worse, and she doesn't like it. Oz's eyes were filled with disdain, as if Patriarch Shi was dragging him down. Patriarch Shi's face darkened. Anyway, Wang Huiying is not related to you by blood. Does it make a difference to you who inherits it? Oz said expressionlessly. Is Confederate Laboratory 191 something that can be casually handed over to outsiders? Patriarch Shi glared at Oz and said in a deep voice. But a few minutes later, Master Shi asked again, Bei Yunj has a few people in her family. Has she considered settling down in Continent K? When it comes to choosing a successor, I have to carefully consider it. That girl didn't agree to take over. You'd better not leak the news. Oz sneered. What do you mean by taking over? Before Patriarch Shi could finish his sentence, Oz added, Oh right, don't let anyone tamper with this competition. This time the bad girl is in the way. In the living room, the loud and ruthless slap caused the hearts of all the instructors present to tighten. Wang Huiying's head was thrown to one side, and her face was red and swollen. Trash. If Instructor Han didn't bet on the other team's points, do you think you would still be in first place today? Wang Hui's eyes were dark as he threw something at Wang Huiying's face. Take a good look. Do you have the right to get 59 points with your trashy results? End of chapter. Chapter 1102. Wang Huiying picked it up and looked at it. It was a comparison of her and Bei Yunj's results. Although Bei Yunj's team's results were slightly inexperienced in many areas, the key content was completely better than hers. Wang Huiying bit her lip. Her face was burning with pain, but it didn't affect her mood. Su Jihuan doesn't have the ability to beat me. I don't want to hear your explanation. I only want the results. Wang Hui's gaze was malicious. He sneered, Wang Huiying, you can't even compare to this kind of trash team. Do you still expect your name to go down in history? His words fell. Soon Wang Hui's anger subsided slightly. He said again, Huiying, you disappoint me too much. Wang Huiying gritted her teeth. Su Jihuan, that group of trash beat me this time just by luck. She took a deep breath, her eyes filled with stubbornness and cold pride. I underestimated them. Wang Huiying, this is the last time. You know what it means to be first this time. With that, Wang Hui left with a flick of his sleeves. When Seng Qi and the others arrived, they only saw Wang Huiying's eyes red and one side of her cheek red and swollen. Huiying, what's wrong? Wang Huiying didn't speak. She just stood up slowly, her tone was cold and sarcastic. This time I'm going to crush that group of trash Su Jihuan into the mud. Seng Qi and the others inexplicably didn't dare to look at Wang Huiying. This was the first time they saw Wang Huiying's gloomy face. The library. Bei Yunj had just reached the 6th floor when she was suddenly stopped by someone. Girl. Bei Yunj turned and saw Oz looking at her coldly. This gloomy image was very much like a big villain who killed people like flies. But in the next moment, Oz just threw a cushion to her. Don't dirty the cushion. Bei Yunj's lips curved. Thank you, old master. Hearing this, Oz didn't leave like before. Instead, he was silent for a moment and said, You won. I can give you the information. But you really don't want to be the successor of 191? Even if 191 lost, there's still no research institute that can compare to 191. Bei Yunj was unmoved. Seeing this, Oz's eyebrows twitched and he threw another book at her. Bei Yunj flipped through the contents. This was even more valuable than the scientific data and information left behind by Shernani. The author's name was J.H. Do you like this guy's book? Oz asked tentatively. Bei Yunj's eyebrows twitched. He didn't expect Confederation 191 to have such a high standard of books. Oz knew Bei Yunj would like it. After all, very few people knew that the number one genius of Confederation 191 wasn't Shernani, but this foreign student. You sold it to me? Bei Yunj asked. Oz almost interrupted this guy's train of thought. If you get first place in the competition, I will give you all of this person's books. Bei Yunj's eyes flickered with a dark light. A moment later she returned the book to Oz. I'm sorry. I promised my master that I wouldn't join Confederation 191. Oz also began to hate this girl's cleverness. He was even angered by her cerebral palsy master to the point that his heart ached. Which dog was this girl's master? He actually didn't let his disciple join Confederation 191? The finals were coming. After Su Jihuan came back from drawing lots, Tang Yi and the others looked at the theme and report order and almost stopped breathing. There were a total of 10 themes and 9 teams to choose from. Chapter 1103. Brother Yi, I think I've used up all my bad luck for a year. Tang Yi was speechless. Congratulations. The corners of Du Chaoya's mouth twitched. Why don't we get Bei Yunj to do it? In the previous round, Wang Huiying's team probably didn't use their full strength. But now that the same theme was presented, wasn't this giving Wang Huiying and the rest a chance to torture them? But I've already asked Guru to sleep. She didn't seem to have rested yesterday. Su Jihuan said weakly. Let's do it. We can't leave everything to our companions. After Tang Yi finished speaking, a lazy laugh suddenly rang out behind him. But we're a team too. Tang Yi and the rest looked over instinctively. Su Jihuan jumped for joy. Yunj. Bei Yunj slowly placed the paper bag on the table. I brought you food. Thank you, Father Pei. Su Jihuan and Du Chaoya had already reached out to snatch it. What theme did you draw? Bei Yunj asked. After Tang Yi briefly explained, he was silent for a moment. Why don't you let us do it first this time? When it's about time, you can help us modify it. Bei Yunj thought for a moment. Okay. For a few days. Tang Yi and the rest were still diligently analyzing the data, and tutors often came to guide them. However, Tang Yi was careful and did not tell the tutor everything about the team's report. So, the tutor, who had just left Tang Ye's place, went to Wang Huiying's laboratory. Elder Ma, how's their progress? Wang Huiying asked. Elder Ma shook his head. That kid Tang Yi is very meticulous. He didn't tell me their content. Wang Huiying's eyes darkened and her expression was mocking. It's all right, Elder Ma. You can go back. Okay, Mississippi. After Elder Ma left, Wang Huiying suddenly said, Tang Fengyin, Tang Yi is from your Tang family, right? Is your Tang family planning to go against our Shi family? Tang Fengyin's usual gentle smile froze. Miss Wang, he's just an illegitimate son of a branch family. But he's still a member of your Tang family. Wang Huiying observed the experiment as she recorded the data. She only smiled generously. I still hope that you can do it. Otherwise, my father will doubt the sincerity of the Tang family's alliance. Tang Fengyin was silent. I understand, Miss Wang. A few days before the finals, the rain continued to fall. Bei Yunj had just thrown the umbrella into the bucket and was about to enter the library when someone called her from behind. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. Miss Wang seems to be quite free. Wang Huiying held the umbrella and chuckled in the rain. Miss Pei, I'm here to make a deal with you. As long as you can destroy Su Jihuan's report, I can let you enter Confederation 191 and get benefits that you can't even imagine. When Bei Yunj heard this, she curled her lips with great interest. What? Can't the Su family afford me this? Wang Huiying's smile faded, and her eyes became gloomy. Bei Yunj, even if you participate in the competition, you won't be able to beat me. Then what is Miss Wang afraid of? Bei Yunj smiled unhurriedly. Wang Huiying clenched her fists and sneered at Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj, you'll regret this. With that, Wang Huiying left. Bei Yunj was deep in thought. Before entering the library, she reminded Tang Yi and the others to protect the information and their own safety. But what was hard to believe was that Wang Huiying dared to make a move outside the laboratory building one day before the finals. Chapter 1104. At the hospital. Bei Yunj arrived very quickly, but when the elevator bell rang, he didn't expect Suyu to come out of the opposite elevator. His hair was still messy. Bei Yunj didn't look at him anymore. He had just left when Suyu followed closely behind. However, what Suyu didn't expect was that when he saw Su Jihuan crying until her eyes were red, he subconsciously opened his hand. However, what he expected was not Su Jihuan throwing herself into his arms like before. Instead, Su Jihuan didn't even look at him. She ran over and hugged Bei Yunj. Yunj, brother, you lost a lot of blood. Su Jihuan's tears fell. Bei Yunj instinctively wanted to push her away, but seeing that Su Jihuan was crying sadly, he could only move his eyelids and slowly take out a tissue to wipe her tears. Old Du, what's wrong with Tang Yi? Du Chaoya said, the doctor said that he lost too much blood and his body is covered in injuries. He might have to lie in bed for a few months. It must be Wang Huiying and the rest. Without anyone's instructions, who can enter Confederation 191? Su Jihuan gritted her teeth in anger. Bei Yunj was silent for a moment. Old Du, go to the laboratory and get the information first. Jihuan and I will guard here. Okay. Du Chaoya was actually a little worried about the competition. After all, Tang Yi was the one who did the final work. After Du Chaoya left. Only then did Su Jihuan realize that Suyu was here. Why are you here? Su Jihuan was puzzled from the bottom of her heart. Suyu didn't expect that he had sent Su Jihuan to the Confederation 191 training camp because he wanted Su Jihuan to stop clinging to him for a few days. But now, Su Jihuan seemed to have changed into a different person. She treated him as if he didn't exist and even questioned him like this. I heard that you were in the hospital. Suyu pursed his lips and couldn't help but look at Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj raised an eyebrow at him. Suyu was speechless. Yet this person had someone protecting her. Then you can go back. I have to wait for Brother Yi to wake up. Su Jihuan was still a little overwhelmed. Her mind was filled with Tang Ye's blood. Suyu was inexplicably frustrated. After glancing at Su Jihuan, he said coldly, up. With that said, Suyu left. Only Bei Yunj looked at his back with interest. What kind of attitude is that? I'm not afraid that he'll be unhappy if he waits for too long. Just as Su Jihuan finished speaking, Du Chaoya called. He told them that all the data in the laboratory had been destroyed. As for the backup in his hands, he probably wouldn't be able to finish editing it in one night. Hearing this, Su Jihuan was so angry that her entire body was trembling. She wanted to fight Wang Huiying to the death. Is Wang Huiying sick? A cold look flashed across Bei Yunj's beautiful eyes, and she let out a long laugh. However, it was still hair-raising. When Du Chaoya came back, Bei Yunj asked him to bring her computer. Bei Yunj glanced at the sleepy Du Chaoya and Su Jihuan and turned on her computer again. Inside the folder was the content she had written some time ago. Coincidentally, it was also the theme of the competition. After a quick glance, she licked her lips and sneered softly. Then she slowly deleted the last signature. She signed it again. Group 9 Bei Yunj team. The next day. It was Bei Yunj's first time sleeping in the hospital corridor. Her eyes were filled with impatience and irritation, especially after the scream. But Su Jihuan didn't know it all. I actually fell asleep. I haven't finished editing the manuscript yet. How did I fall asleep? The nurse next to them looked at the three good-looking people and felt very strange. There's still an empty ward. Why are you sleeping on the bench? The young ladies and young masters. Chapter 1105. None of them had any common sense. Brother Yi doesn't seem to be awake yet. Su Jihuan leaned against the door of the intensive care unit. After watching for a while, her eyes dimmed. Tang Yi will be fine. Let's think about the competition first. Du Chaoye glanced at Tang Yi in the ward and massaged his temples. Why don't I give a speech? After all, Bei Yunj had not participated in the theme this time. Du Chaoye did not plan to let a girl like Su Jihuan bear such a responsibility. But you don't know the entire framework. Su Jihuan bit her lip. Why don't I'll go? Suddenly, a voice sounded from the side, attracting Su Jihuan and Du Chaoye's attention. Yunj, what's in there? Su Jihuan looked at her USB flash drive. She remembered that Bei Yunj did not copy their documents. I wrote it last month for fun and happened to run into the topic. Bei Yunj had already copied the information into the USB flash drive. His index finger twirled the USB flash drive string lazily, his posture casual. Su Jihuan was speechless. She really didn't dare to believe his careless appearance. Daddy Pei, are you sure you want to use your own? Su Jihuan held Bei Yunj's hand tightly and wanted to struggle. I can't remember your content either. Pei Yunj said slowly without blushing or skipping a beat. At the venue of the finals. What no one expected was that among the judges today, the Shi family's head and the successor of 191 Wang Hui would actually be there. However, Wang Hui's expression did not look too good. It was obvious that he did not expect the Shi family's head to be a judge. However, at this moment, what was more eye-catching was that Bei Yunj and the other two were late. In the venue, only Wang Huiying's eyes were filled with mockery as she looked at the three late people. She thought that these three people would not dare to come. However, it was even better that they were here. Let the competition begin. With that said, the host invited the first team to present their results. Under the Shi family's head scrutiny, almost none of the other judges dared to give a high score. This made the scalps of the others turn numb. After a few contestants, no one got a high score. They all hovered between 70 and 80 points. Until Wang Huiying appeared. Su Jihuan and Du Chaoye looked at the PowerPoint behind Wang Huiying and felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. She kept feeling that there were a few core points that were especially similar to what Tang Yi had written. However, not long after, the contents of the next slide made Su Jihuan and Du Chaoye's faces turn black. This slide was their team's PowerPoint, and Wang Huiying and the others had used it exactly as it was. What does Wang Huiying mean? Plagiarizing our content in broad daylight. Su Jihuan's anger reached its peak. At this moment, Wang Huiying smiled at Bei Yunj and the others. She obviously knew that Bei Yunj and the others had no evidence. And in Confederate 191, who would dare to touch her? Bei Yunj glanced at him unhurriedly, not saying a word the whole time. Until Wang Huiying finished. The judges gave him the highest score. 84. Next, Bei Yunj's team. Let's welcome Tang Yi to the stage. As soon as the host finished speaking, Bei Yunj stood up and said, I'm sorry. My partner can't come to the competition, so I'll take her place at the last minute. Aren't you taking our competition too seriously? Wang Hui suddenly said sternly. Who knew? Bei Yunj glanced at him and sneered. Does Mr. Wang need to shout at me for the Shi family's competition? As soon as he finished speaking, the scene froze for a long time. This was the first person who dared to point out Wang Hui's weakness. He was a ruthless person. P.S. I don't have any ideas, so I wrote a little slowly. I'll write more today. I'll continue tonight. Chapter 1106. Only Su Jihuan suspected that Bei Yunj had just woken up and wasn't in a good mood, but as expected. Wang Hui's face darkened completely. However, Bei Yunj's tone was casual and her terrifying aura was hard to ignore. Her slender and beautiful hands slowly brushed through her long curly black hair. She smiled calmly, but there was no warmth in her voice. Okay, it's not time to settle the score yet. Wang Hui was about to say something when he suddenly met Bei Yunj's curved eyes. Her beautiful eyes seemed to be smiling but not smiling, cold and terrifying. It made people shudder. Wang Hui's heart inexplicably skipped a beat. He was actually intimidated by this little girl. Patriarch Shi was also very surprised when he saw this scene. He had only seen Bei Yunj briefly before and only thought that this little girl was too eye-catching. But now he realized that she controlled the entire scene. Bei Yunj didn't look at the slides behind her. She just licked her lips and said in a lazy voice, Hello everyone, I'm Bei Yunj. This report will be done by me and 3 other team members. As soon as she finished speaking, The slides behind Bei Yunj began to show the main topic. When the others saw the contents of the slides behind Bei Yunj, their expressions changed. The 10th topic was undoubtedly the most difficult of the 10 topics. Even Wang Huiying was very cautious in order to win this competition. She didn't dare to take the risk of choosing a deeper topic. However, the slides behind Bei Yunj started with a deeper topic. It was on a completely different level from the other contestants. If they were told that Bei Yunj's report was written by the top researchers of Confederation 191, they would probably believe it. What kind of monsters were the members of this team? Crouching tigers and hidden dragons? Not only did the contestants have a mental breakdown, but even the judges' faces stiffened after hearing Bei Yunj's smooth speech. Was she here to participate in the training camp competition? This level of content was already not something they could comment on. For some reason they felt like they had offended a big shot in the industry. The judges' scalps went numb and they didn't dare to give this score. Du Chaoye and Su Jihuan were also stunned. Su Jihuan's breathing stagnated. She wrote this for fun? Du Chaoye. Meanwhile, the onlookers who weren't afraid of blowing up the matter were still discussing. F***CK, what kind of big shot is this Group 9 doing? Slapping the opposing genius group's face round after round? If I were Wang Huiying, I would be so angry that I would vomit blood. One of them, a fan of Bei Yunj, couldn't help but feel his blood boil. Master Pei, how is this a slap in the face? This is clearly a strafing shot. Other than her, no one else survived, at this very moment. As expected, Wang Huiying's face was ashen, and the hatred in her eyes was almost surging out. Where did Bei Yunj's report come from? Or was Bei Yunj playing with her on purpose? Huiying, what should we do? Tang Fingyin's face was also pale and he was already regretting it. If he hadn't found someone to injure Tang Yi, he wouldn't have let Bei Yunj go on stage. Wang Huiying pursed her lips and turned her head to see the head of the Shi family looking at Bei Yunj with sparkling eyes. He couldn't suppress his excitement. For some reason, she panicked and had a bad feeling. My report ends here. Thank you, everyone. As soon as Bei Yunj finished speaking, the judges felt uncomfortable no matter how they sat. They didn't know how to give this score. P.S. I can't take it anymore. I'm too sleepy. I'll wake up early tomorrow to finish these 3 chapters. Good night, everyone. End of chapter. Chapter 1107. The judges stared at each other in a deadlock. They were all egging each other on to be the first to give Bei Yunj a score. At this moment, Master Shi had just calmed down. He couldn't help but frown and ask, "What are you all waiting for?" After a long while, one of the judges said helplessly, "Master Shi, this score, how are we going to give her a score?" Someone immediately answered, "Actually, I heard about this topic at our nation's Physics Research Institute last time. But in terms of the content of the report, it's not as deep and accurate as this contestant." There were many physicists in our nation. They were even more skilled than the core members of Confederation 191. To be able to suppress the report of our nation's top physics research institute, this score was not something they could give her? Master Shi was speechless. No one had expected this scene. A rookie training camp could actually have such a godly contestant. Soon after the judges finished their discussion, everyone saw Master Shi walk in front of Bei Yunj. Miss Pei's talent is outstanding. She's even more outstanding than my most outstanding daughter. Instantly, the contestants were in an uproar. Wasn't Master Shi talking about Shernani? Many people subconsciously looked at Wang Huiying. After all, Wang Huiying had been calling herself Little Shernani for so many years. But Master Shi said this in front of so many people. Wasn't this a slap to Wang Huiying's face? Sure enough, Wang Huiying's face was as black as a pot. Clan head Shi, why didn't you report your points? Only Su Jihuan asked with concern. Master Shi laughed and said again, the judges here probably don't have the ability to give Miss Pei a score like this. But first place is undeserved, ashamed. Suddenly, Wang Hui's gloomy voice interrupted Master Shi's words. If Miss Pei is this good, why would she participate in this kind of competition? Wang Hui sneered. I have reason to suspect that Bei Yunj is openly cheating. Wang Hui. Master Shi's expression changed. He didn't expect Wang Hui to be so impatient. But Wang Hui continued in a gloomy tone, Dad, this person's motive is unclear. We should remove her name from the list and kick her out of this competition. Wang Hui had been working under Family Head Shi for a long time, so he could more or less guess what Family Head Shi's motive was. Comparing Shernani to Bei Yunj, it was very likely that he wanted to let Bei Yunj, an outsider, take away his position. He would never allow such a thing to happen. Hurry up and call someone over. Chase this person out, Wang Hui said coldly. But in the next moment, Oz's voice sounded coldly. Drive them out? What right do you have to make decisions for Confederation 191? When Wang Hui saw Oz walking over, he sneered, so it's you. You're trying to trip me up behind my back. Oz sneered, you're just someone who eats soft rice. Do you still need me to worry about you? I'm here today because this girl is the successor that I've chosen for Miss Nanny. In your dreams. Wang Hui was furious, but then he sneered, Oz, I really didn't expect you to cheat with other players in order to pull me down. But you have to remember that I gave you face. But since you still don't understand who's in charge here, then I'll chase you and Bei Yunj out today. Hearing this, before Wang Huiying had time to sneer, a voice suddenly sounded from outside the door. End of chapter. Chapter 1108. Who's tired of living now? How dare you touch my disciple? Everyone turned around and suddenly saw an old man in a neat suit. Although his expression was calm, there was a majestic look in his eyes. Bei Yunj was quite surprised. He didn't expect Nancy to come here. Who is this old man? The contestants below the stage were all discussing. No one knew him. But the old members of Confederation 191 were shocked. Even their voices were filled with disbelief. Teacher Nancy, it's Mr. Nancy? Most of the contestants were still young and didn't know what the word Nancy meant in the scientific research circle. But Confederation 191 had witnessed with their own eyes how many achievements Nancy had left in this era. At this moment, Oz's hoarse voice was even more unsettled. His expression was distorted. Bei Yunj is your disciple? Nancy turned and looked at Oz for a while before recognizing him. Yes, yours. He didn't know when Oz's face was disfigured. And the way Oz and Patriarch Sure looked at Nancy was as if they couldn't wait to fight him on the spot. They were so angry that their teeth itched. This dog was really shameless. He actually dared to come to Confederation 191. Are you worthy of stepping into our Confederation 191? Patriarch Sure's tone was angry. When Nancy heard this, he immediately sneered and retorted, Patriarch Sure loves his son-in-law better than his daughter. Can't wait to fight for his son-in-law? You're slandering me. Patriarch Sure was so angry that he almost fainted. He pointed at Nancy and gritted his teeth. You shameless thing. You've done so much evil, yet you're still blaming me? Bei Yunj looked at this scene and couldn't help but twitch his eyelids. Master. As soon as he finished speaking, Nancy didn't continue to scold Patriarch Sure. Bei Yunj thought for a moment and said slowly, Patriarch Sure, I understand that you have grudges with the previous generation. If you really hate my master that much, you can remove me from this first place. I also hope that 191, as the largest laboratory in Continent K, will treat my companions fairly. Hearing this, Su Jihuan and the other two couldn't help but look at Bei Yunj. If it weren't for Bei Yunj, how could they have gotten first place? But before they could say anything, said, Little girl, the Confederacy 191 only has a problem with him. They have no problem with you. Nancy slowly turned to look at Bei Yunj. Clearly, he didn't understand why the old bastards of Confederate 191 had such a different attitude towards his disciple. However, suddenly Wang Hui's gloomy voice rang out. No wonder Bei Yunj's team was able to submit such a report. It seems that even after so many years, Mr. Nancy still can't forget Confederate 191. Do you think everyone is like you, someone who likes to live off women? Nancy sneered. She was merciless in attacking her enemy. As expected, Wang Hui's face darkened. After all, with such a peerless master like me, it's hard for my disciple to fail even if he doesn't want to. Nancy was still sighing with emotion, but her heart was blooming with joy. Who would have thought that his disciple would be able to slap Wang Hui's face? Bei Yunj? But in the next moment. However, Patriarch Sure hurriedly ignored him and walked to Bei Yunj's side. Yunj, why don't you consider removing your master-disciple relationship with that old thing? Our Confederacy 191 has high hopes for you. Patriarch Sure was just short of saying, What do you think of my position? Bei Yunj was speechless. Sure Hongsen, what do you mean? Are you trying to steal my disciple in front of me? Nancy said with a shocked and angry expression. End of chapter. Chapter 1109. The head of the Sure family couldn't hold back his anger. Nancy, so what if I poached your disciple? You even poached my daughter and you still have the cheek to criticize me? Bei Yunji's eyelids twitched. When the head of the Sure family thought of his daughter, he couldn't help but tear up. Do you think it's easy for me? I raised Yi all by myself. Originally, I just wanted to find someone worthy of her trust, but what about you? Eloping with her? Now that Yi is gone, I just want to find her a disciple to take over. How am I wrong? Hearing this, Nancy paused. He didn't expect that the head of the Sure family wanted to keep Bei Yunji to find a successor for Sure Nani. After a short silence, Nancy was a little helpless. This matter still depends on what Guru thinks. Oz glanced at Nancy coldly and said in a sarcastic tone, You taught her well. You didn't let the little girl join Confederation 191. I've been persuading her all this time, but she refused to be Miss Nani's disciple. Nancy? He didn't expect this either. After all, Bei Yunji didn't even mention it to him. He could not imagine how tempting the Confederation 191 would be to all of them. But he didn't expect that Bei Yunji would even reject the position of successor. Or if you want, I won't stop you. Nancy was touched and immediately said. Unexpectedly, Bei Yunji glanced at him slowly and chuckled softly. No need, Master. Master, I have no choice but to take over your territory. Nancy's emotions dissipated instantly. The head of the Sure family, how did Nancy trick this girl to become his disciple back then? At this moment, Wang Hui and Wang Huiying's eyes had completely darkened. Soon one of Wang Hui's men said, Master, but our successor has always been Mr. Wang Hui. I only let him temporarily manage the 191 successor, but I never promised him that he would definitely inherit this position. These words made Wang Hui's eyes even colder. So I've worked hard for Confederation 191 for so many years, but the head of the family is not moved at all? Patriarch Sure said calmly, Wang Hui, I've said it before. I hope that this position can be inherited by a capable person. Painted Oriole is indeed capable. I can let her continue to stay in Confederate 191. However, she's not suitable for the position of successor in the future, and neither are you. These words made Wang Hui even angrier. He sneered, Good? Good. Patriarch Sure was indeed bold. But do you really think that Confederation 191 can survive without me? After Wang Hui said this specious sentence, he turned around and left angrily. Wang Huiying looked at Bei Yunji with a venomous look in her eyes. She had never expected that Bei Yunji would mess up the plan her father had set up for so many years. After the event ended, Master Sure, for Wang Hui to be able to control the operations of Confederation 191 for so many years, I'm afraid the people behind him are not to be trifled with. Oz suddenly said. How could I not know? Patriarch Sure smiled and said, But I always dream of Nanny crying to me, saying that she doesn't want to marry Wang Hui and doesn't want to have anything to do with him. Even if something happens, I'll take responsibility for that little girl. As long as she's willing to inherit Nan Yi's position. Oz didn't say anything. Outside the building, Bei Yunji was still listening to Nancy's incessant nagging about the benefits of being the successor of Confederation 191 until she caught a glimpse of someone not far away. Her eyes curved. Master, we'll talk about other things later. I'll go back first. Wait, you. Before Nancy could finish speaking, he saw Bei Yunji running towards the man not far away. Although he was far away, Nancy could still vaguely see that the man was handsome. He was wearing a black and gray woolen coat and had a noble temperament. Only Bei Yunji ran closer and saw that the man's short black hair was stained with snow. His expression was light, but his light-colored eyes were staring straight at her. Bei Yunji's heart skipped a beat. Suddenly she only heard the man chuckle. Bei Yunji thought that her thoughts had been seen through and her tone was not very good. What are you laughing at? It's quite good. The man naturally held the little girl's hand. His magnetic and deep voice had a smile that made people blush and their hearts race. He said lazily, It seems that there are no male classmates in the training camp who are better looking than me. Bei Yunji? After not seeing him for so long, this D*MN man's first words were flirtatious? After getting into the car, Bei Yunji did not look at Hoshido. But after a while, Bei Yunji felt that something was wrong with this route. She asked, Where are we going? The man said unhurriedly, Luocia's place. Bei Yunji, you don't want to go? Just help me test a new machine, okay, Yinyun? The man's deep voice was extremely seductive, but his hand gently pinched her palm and rubbed it gently, making her heart itch. They walked into Luocia's laboratory. Luoxia also had a sour expression on his face, but he did not expect to see Bei Yunji's expression when he looked up. This person was even better at showing expressions than him. Luoxia sneered and could not help but glance at Huashidu. How did Bei Yunji look like there was something wrong with him? Miss Pei has been sent here by Master Du time and time again. Could there really be a problem? Bei Yunji heard Luoxia's probing and looked up at him. But in the next moment Luoxia mocked, "If your heart is really twisted and you like to find trouble with others, this is an education problem. I can't help you." Bei Yunji sneered. Dr. Luo is still single and likes to go around acknowledging relatives and educating them. If you really have some hidden illness, why don't you go see a doctor? Instantly, Luoxia's face darkened. What did Bei Yunji mean? Did she say that he had a problem in that area? Outside the door, Zhou Yu walked to Huashidu's side and reported about Confederation 191. Huashidu raised his eyebrows. He did not expect Shi Hongxin to be willing to pass his position to Bei Yunji. Zhou Yu glanced at Huashidu and said, "Master Du, this Wang Hui is also valuable to us." After all, Wang Hui was also a chess piece that Huashidu had set up in Confederation 191. Therefore, when Wang Hui contacted Zhou Yu through someone and hoped that Zhou Yu could help him, Zhou Yu hesitated. "Zhou Yu, you've gone overboard." The man's voice was indifferent, but there was no warmth. Zhou Yu wanted to say something but hesitated. However, when he saw Huashidu's indifferent gaze, Zhou Yu felt as if a bucket of ice water had been poured over him. Zhou Yu quickly lowered his head and admitted his mistake. "Yes." Huashidu only glanced at him casually. Not long after, the corners of his lips suddenly curled up. He reached out and picked up the red scarf that Bei Yunji had placed at the side. He said casually, "Clean up the people from Confederation 191. Don't cause trouble for my girl." Zhou Yu. "Yes. However." Chapter 11:10. Mr. Wang, will that person help us? Wang Hui's men started to feel uneasy. Hearing this, Wang Hui gritted his teeth and sneered. "Definitely. But even if he doesn't, I have a way to let that little girl know what's good for her." Had he spent so many years in Confederation 191 for nothing? Shi Hongxin was really ridiculous. He actually thought that a little girl could replace his position? In the laboratory. "Boss, this girl looks very normal. Is there really a problem?" The experimenter in the observation room asked softly. Luoxia sneered. "Is there a problem? Master Du treats her like a treasure. What problem can there be?" If there was a problem with Bei Yunji, it was because Huashidu had spoiled her. Luoxia didn't care. But in the next moment, Luoxia suddenly heard a loud noise in the laboratory. When he reacted, his eyelids twitched and he immediately ran over to Bei Yunji. But he saw Bei Yunji standing by the side with a normal expression. He didn't notice the coldness in Bei Yunji's eyes that had not completely disappeared. And there was a crack on the surface of the latest machine he bought. Luoxia's expression also cracked. "I'm sorry, Dr. Luo. I accidentally bumped into it." Bei Yunji's voice sounded unhurriedly. Luoxia even had the thought of strangling Bei Yunji to death. Did she know how much money he had spent to buy this machine? Luoxia's expression kept changing. The observer beside him immediately whispered to Bei Yunji, "Miss Pei, come out quickly. Boss's heart is aching." Bei Yunji was speechless. Not long after, Bei Yunji left with the observer. She asked casually, "Is this machine very expensive?" "It's not too expensive. Boss only got this machine because he asked for favors. Also." The observer looked around and immediately said to her sneakily, "My boss bought this machine specially for the goddess." "Goddess?" Bei Yunji's first thought was Lai Yunqing. "Yes. She's the one who nominated the Busaka. Our boss has been single for so many years just to have a vigorous relationship with her," the researcher said excitedly. Bei Yunji felt a chill run down her spine. The next moment, the man's voice sounded indifferently. "Yun Yun." Inexplicably, Bei Yunji seemed to sense the coldness in the man's voice. But when she came back to her senses, Bei Yunji felt that she was overthinking. "Brother." Bei Yunji walked up to the man. However, before Huashidu could speak, Luoxia walked over quickly and even asked his laboratory staff to leave the hall. Luoxia looked at Bei Yunji silently and his attitude changed. "Miss Pei, I hope you can accept my face-to-face examination." Luoxia couldn't help but look at Bei Yunji when he thought of the data he had just seen on the machine. Initially, Luoxia had thought that Huashidu was making a fuss over nothing. What could have happened to Bei Yunji? But now, he realized that Huashidu's motive for returning to Continent K was very likely to be for Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj glanced at Luoxia expressionlessly, but she kept suppressing the dark thoughts in her heart. The atmosphere suddenly turned silent. Huashidu lowered his eyes and looked at her. After a while, Bei Yunj heard the man suddenly speak. "Forget it if you don't want to see it." Luoxia instinctively looked up at him. "Master Du?" Luoxia was getting more and more confused by Huashidu's thoughts. End of chapter. Chapter 11:11. Luoxia, continue with your work. With that said, Huashidu left with Bei Yunj. However, in the car, Huashidu received a message from Luoxia and the data recorded by the machine. Luoxia suggested that he bring her to his laboratory again to investigate the cause of Bei Yunj's illness. Huashidu's eyes were dark. Not long after, he put his phone back into his pocket. In the blink of an eye, Huashidu saw Bei Yunj looking at him. The machine just now affected brain activity through brainwaves. Bei Yunj's emotions were more or less affected. For a moment, she could not get rid of the dark thoughts in her mind. Bei Yunj had just calmed down and was still thinking about how to speak to Huashidu. However, she did not expect to hear the man's deep and magnetic voice. "We're returning to Yuncheng in 2 days?" Bei Yunj's long eyelashes fluttered slightly and she quickly licked her red lips. After a while, she asked, "Aren't you going to continue the examination?" With that said, Bei Yunj did not hear Huashidu speak and looked up instinctively. However, she did not expect the man to stare straight at her. The corners of his upturned eyes were charming and he chuckled in a low voice. It was as if he was making a serious promise to her. He said slowly, "Bei Yunj, we still have a long time in the future." Bei Yunj's heart thumped unnaturally and she looked away hurriedly. However, the man's lips curled up. Back at the manor, Bei Yunj watched as Zhou Yu and Seng Su watered the flowers not far away and called Nance. "Other than Luoxia, do I have any other choice?" Nance did not expect Bei Yunj to take the initiative to talk to him about this one day. He snorted. "You still know that I'm your master. I thought you were going to look for Zhong Shenglin again." Nance quickly got to the point. "Yunj, Luoxia is your most suitable choice now." Bei Yunj was speechless. Now, Bei Yunj's scalp turned numb at the thought of what the experimenter had said about a romantic relationship between an older woman and a younger man. "Change it." Bei Yunj was silent for a moment. "Besides, I don't want anyone to know about it for the time being." "Do you not want others to know, or do you not want your brother to know?" Nancy smiled. "Bei Yunj, other than Huashidu, there was no one else who said that." Nance knew that Huashidu's identity was not simple. He had also heard Zhong Xinglin mention Huashidu before. Although he didn't know much about this young man, there was one thing he was sure of. Perhaps even Bei Yunj herself didn't know what this man thought of her. Thinking of this, Nancy could not help but ask, why can't you figure out such a simple question?" After a while, only then did Nancy hear her clear and melodious voice ring out. "Master, it's not like I can figure out everything." Nancy was stunned. After he came back to his senses, he remembered that Bei Yunj was only 19 or 20 years old. However, the more he interacted with Bei Yunj, the higher his expectations for her. It was easy for people to fall into a fallacy with such a genius. She had to be more knowledgeable than everyone else. Suddenly, Bei Yunj's voice interrupted his thoughts. She smiled lazily. "Master, I can inherit Madam's Confederation 191, but there's a score that I haven't settled yet." "What score?" "Confederation 191. No one understood why a group of people would suddenly appear. When they saw Wang Hui, they suddenly attacked him and beat him up until he couldn't even get up." Half a day later, Wang Huiying had just rushed to the hospital when she didn't expect to be slapped by Wang Hui out of nowhere. P.S. There are 2 more updates. If nothing goes wrong, there should be a mini update soon. End of this chapter. Chapter 11:12. Seeing this scene, a woman who looked similar to Wang Huiying hurriedly supported Wang Huiying. "Why did you hit your child? Your daughter came to the hospital to see you out of kindness." Sure, Ruzhen's heart ached. "You should ask her. She can't even compete with Bei Yunj. Isn't it embarrassing?" Wang Hui's long-suppressed anger finally exploded. He pointed at Wang Huiying and scolded her. Wang Huiying covered her face with her hands. Her hair covered half of her face. After a long time, she said gloomily, "Those people today must be Bei Yunj's men." Wang Hui's face darkened. He thought about how he was beaten up in Confederation 191 and his tone became even worse. How did you know? I asked the Tang family to teach the illegitimate son of the Tang family a lesson. He's her teammate. Wang Huiying's hatred for Bei Yunj grew stronger. Bei Yunj was really arrogant. She actually hit her father. Wang Huiying, you? Wang Hui's eyes darkened. He sneered angrily. I didn't expect you to become so useless after so many years. Wang Huiying was his most successful genetic experiment subject. How could she be defeated by an ordinary person? Wang Huiying seemed to have been provoked. Her voice was sharp and she sneered. Useless? Father, don't forget that if it weren't for me, grandfather wouldn't have considered letting you inherit the laboratory. But Wang Hui was even more furious when he heard this. How dare you talk back to me? Shi Ruzhen immediately protected her daughter. Huiying didn't mean to provoke you. Don't treat your daughter like this. I treat her like this? How much effort did I put in to nurture her? Look at the result. She can't even compete with a wild girl who came out of nowhere. Now Shi Hongsen wants to pass his position to a wild girl? Wang Huiying's expression became even more twisted when she heard this. Brother Hui, I have a solution. Shi Ruzhen said immediately. Wang Hui frowned. What solution? Old Mr. Dongshi. Shi Ruzhen looked at Wang Huiying's red and swollen face, and a trace of heartache flashed across her eyes. Soon she said, Elder Dong is father's teacher and the person with the most authority in Confederation 191. Father has always respected him. Therefore, as long as Elder Dong opposes father, there is still room for negotiation. Shi Ruzhen continued, Elder Dong hasn't asked about anything in the laboratory in the past few years, but he has always favored Huiying. After listening, Wang Hui's complexion finally returned to normal, but Wang Huiying's gaze was malicious. This time she would not let Bei Yunj off the hook. The college entrance examination was approaching and Bei Yunj had been receiving news from Qin Luyin and the other two. He was even pulled into a group chat, and the three of them took turns sharing the poisonous chicken soup that they had gotten from God knows where. Little clever trick that exploded in the college entrance examination circle. Her parents actually raised her to be the city's top scorer. Tens of thousands of parents who took the college entrance examination express regret that they did not buy these for their children. You're only 3 minutes away from the college entrance examination dark horse. In fact, Bei Yunj even saw by chance that Qin Yu had retracted an article. Parents did all this to raise the confidence of children with poor results for the college entrance examination. The corners of Bei Yunj's lips twitched. Then he left the group chat expressionlessly. Suddenly, what's going on? I heard that you rubbed Wang Huiying. Chapter 11-13. Bei Yunj threw her phone on the table and said casually, Do you have a problem with that? Si Qingyan was speechless. It had been a few months since they last met, but this person's temper had not decreased. No problem. However, I've long heard that Wang Huiying used you as a stepping stone back then. Everyone said that only she could surpass you. Si Qingyan raised an eyebrow, gloating indescribably. Wang Huiying probably wouldn't have thought that she was the one being hammered. Did you come to Continent K just to gossip? Bei Yunj asked slowly. What nonsense are you talking about? It's all because old Master Zhong couldn't bear to use his ultimate move and let you compete with Lai Yunqing, so he called me here. Bei Yunj asked excitedly, You won? Si Qingyan did not deny it. Of course. After all, Si Qingyan had become a professor at Yunqing University at such a young age. Of course his talent was not bad. Besides, with Bei Yunj giving him endless pressure, Si Qingyan had not dared to rest for the past year. After dinner, Bei Yunj and Si Qingyan had just gone downstairs when they unexpectedly encountered a robbery in the mall. The sound of a gunshot caused a commotion on the field. Continent K was not like Country A. Even the well-guarded wealthy district would occasionally have bandits enter. Not to mention the chaotic city. Si Qingyan almost cursed. He had just won the competition and wanted to walk around Continent K, but he did not expect to encounter such a thing on the same day. Those who don't want to die, squat down. The man with the weapon was still holding a boy. With that said, the citizens who had yet to escape did not dare to move. Even though such things often happened in this city, no one could avoid the fear of death. Yunj, let's go upstairs first. Si Qingyan was about to bring Bei Yunj upstairs and call the police, but in the next second Bei Yunj walked downstairs. Yunj? Before Si Qingyan could pull her back, Bei Yunj's eyes swept over the three people with guns. Do you want a hostage? What do you think of me? Bei Yunj's words angered the criminal gang. Do you have a death wish? Pei Yunj slowly took off her watch and threw it accurately to the side of the clear pool. She raised an eyebrow and was indescribably arrogant. Sir, that watch is worth the value of everyone here. Si Qingyan was speechless. The crowd, is this the time for you to show off your wealth? True enough. When the man with the gun saw the watch that was worth nearly 100 million yuan, he could not hide his greed. He immediately asked Bei Yunj to go and exchange the hostage. Si Qingyan said, Bei Yunj, you, hurry up and call the police. Bei Yunj left after saying that. But in the next moment, the man with the spear didn't let the little boy go. Instead, he suddenly picked up a dagger and stabbed Bei Yunj's snow-white neck. Another idiot who isn't afraid of death. He sneered disdainfully. A rich man who came out of the ivory tower is really idealistic. Bei Yunj slowly glanced at the exquisitely dressed little boy and roughly knew why the criminal was unwilling to let him go. Bei Yunj was silent for a moment before he said slowly, Are you really not letting him go? Cut the crap. Get your parents too. Before the criminal could finish speaking, a painful howl attracted everyone's attention. No one thought that an exquisite and beautiful little girl could do such a thing. The two accomplices of the criminal quickly aimed their weapons at Bei Yunj. End of chapter. Chapter 11-14. What was faster than the two criminals was the gun that Bei Yunj had just snatched. The two criminals' hands were covered in blood. Their faces were twisted in pain, but they did not have the time to pick up the gun. Try picking one up. Suddenly, Bei Yunj's half-smiling voice landed in their ears. It was very frivolous. Let's see if I'm accurate at shooting. As soon as she finished speaking, not only the criminals but everyone else also felt a chill run down their spines. No one dared to pick it up. After all, this girl could shoot through their hands from such a long distance. A shadow of fear covered their hearts, and the burning pain in their hands was unbearable. It was obvious that this girl had practiced before. The next moment, the guns beside the two of them were kicked away. Si Qingyan had just finished the call when he saw that Bei Yunj had already kidnapped the criminals. A few minutes later, Si Qingyan understood why Bei Yunj asked him to call the police. She just wanted to find someone to deal with the aftermath. It was not only Si Qingyan. The police car that came also felt a chill run down Bei Yunj's spine. Miss, from such a long distance, have you practiced before? He had been a police officer for 3 seconds, but he did not have such accurate marksmanship. I played for 2 years. After Bei Yunj finished speaking slowly, Si Qingyan's scalp went numb. Did this person have 100 hours a day? It was fine if she knew computer science, mathematics and physics, but she had even played with such bloody things. There's also a little boy inside. He must have been kidnapped. After Bei Yunj reminded him, Si Qingyan pulled her away and reprimanded her, saying that she was not afraid of losing her life. After listening for a long time, Bei Yunj finally realized that the watch Qin Luyin had given her was still in the pool. However, when Bei Yunj went to pick it up, the watch was already gone. In this world, people are not what they used to be. Si Qingyan gloated as he felt pity. These people are really worse than you. You saved them, but someone stole your watch in the chaos. Bei Yunj, now that things had come to this, he could only buy another one that was exactly the same. With this plan in mind, Bei Yunj returned home. However, the next day she heard Si Qingyan say faintly that there was no second watch that was identical to the one she was wearing. Qin Luyin had bought this watch because it was unique. A few days later, Bei Yunj was visited. Master Sure, Yunj, there's a banquet in 2 days. Bei Yunj sounded a little frustrated. I'm not free. For the past few days, she had been looking for help to see if she could contact someone to make a high-quality imitation watch. Patriarch Sure and Nancy looked at each other. Soon, Nancy whispered, Dear disciple, this banquet is being held by the Bai family. You have to go. Nancy heaved a sigh of relief, gritted his teeth and said, If you go, the ceremony of the successor of the Confederation can be postponed for half a year. All right. Bei Yunj quickly agreed. But Nancy was about to get into a fight with Patriarch Sure. The Bai family. Bei Yunj was still on the phone with Song Yao. To be precise, Bei Yunj was reprimanding Song Yao unilaterally. As the college entrance examination approached, Song Yao actually took on a script at the last minute. Although Song Yao heard that Bei Yunj was laughing, she did not doubt that if Bei Yunj was in Yunqing, she would probably come to mess with the production team. Before she hung up, Bei Yunj heard a discussion not far away. Akel, I really didn't expect you to save little young master. I heard that those people all had guns. And the old madam, I heard that she almost knelt down for you on the spot. The voices on Song Yao's side were too noisy, but Bei Yunj could hear everything clearly. End of chapter. Chapter 11:15. The girl who answered just smiled and said, I just happened to bump into him. With that said, Tong Li quickly changed the topic and walked to a corner. No one paid attention to the girl's conversation. Suddenly someone asked, But Kel, why do you have such an expensive watch? Tong Li's smile froze and a hint of panic flashed across her eyes. However, she quickly said softly, It's my mother's. Hearing this, the others tactfully shut up. If they had known earlier, the fact that Tong Li was chased out of the Tong family was not a secret in the circle. However, they did not expect that the head of the Tong family would like his lover so much that he would even give her a 9-figure watch. No one noticed that Tong Li could not help but cover the watch on her wrist with her shawl. At the same time, she also covered her trembling hand. 2 days ago, when she was taken away by the Bai family, she panicked and thought that the owner of the watch had come looking for her. However, she did not expect that it was the young master of the Bai family who came looking for their benefactor. Tong Li felt even more depressed. If the young master was not blind, she might have been criticized by everyone for taking that watch in the chaos. She would not be standing here and being treated as a noble by Madame Bai. Thinking of this, Tong Li could not help but look sarcastic. Some people were born with good luck and could even throw away a watch worth nearly 100 million. However, she was chased out of the family with her seriously ill mother when she became an adult. Now she had to rely on others' kindness to gain their attention. Kel, congratulations. Tong Li turned around and saw that Wang Huiying had come to greet her. She was a little flattered. Huiying. However, on second thought, the Bai family's status in Continent K was comparable to the Confederation 191. It was only right that Wang Huiying came to greet her. I just came from Elder Dong's place and brought you good news. Elder Dong has agreed to accept you as his disciple. After Wang Huiying finished speaking, Tong Li was overjoyed. Really? It was difficult to walk in the scientific research circle in Continent K without connections. Tong Li never dreamed that Elder Dong would be willing to accept her as his disciple. Of course it's true. Kel, you're not bad. Wang Huiying smiled. She was not wrong, but Wang Huiying knew that there was another reason. Even Elder Dong wanted to give the Bai family face. Many people had heard the news that the Bai family wanted to adopt Tong Ying as their daughter. Clearly, Tong Xia was going to have a meteoric rise. A dark look flashed across Wang Huiying's eyes. She smiled and said, If that's the case, it won't be a problem to enter Confederation 191. His words made Tong Yi unable to calm down. However, it was the first time Tong Yi was surrounded by so many people. He couldn't help but smile. Compared to Huiying, I'm just an ordinary person. Wang Huiying's gloomy mood in the past few days was completely relieved because of Tong Ying's words. Unfortunately, from the corner of her eye, Wang Huiying saw Bei Yunj, who was staring at someone. A trace of mockery flashed across her eyes. She didn't even need to think to know that Master Shi was the one who sent him here. Thinking of this, she immediately walked over. Miss Pei is alone. Don't you want to make some friends? When Wang Huiying saw that Bei Yunj was being ignored, she couldn't help but poke at her. Who knew? Bei Yunj hung up after saying something to the person on the phone. He turned around and sneered. Miss Wang, you're quite worried. Why don't you let Mr. Wang stay in the hospital and make some more friends? Wang Huiying's face turned ashen. She didn't expect Bei Yunj to dare to mention it. You. When Tong Li saw Bei Yunj, she felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. End of chapter. Chapter 11:16. At that time, Bei Yunj was dressed so tightly that Tong Hua did not recognize her. Bei Yunj, you have to know that you don't have the right to attend this banquet. Wang Huiying gritted her teeth and sneered. This was the first time Wang Huiying had openly challenged someone. Many people were surprised. However, most of them were just here to watch the show. Offending Wang Huiying would not end well in Continent K. Sure enough, the butler came over because of the commotion. What's going on, Miss Wang? The butler asked hurriedly. Does the Bai family invite just anyone? I feel like I'm lowering my status. Wang Huiying's tone was cold. The steward looked troubled. Today's banquet is specially organized for the young master and Miss Tong. All the guests invited are important guests. At this moment, Tong Hua's eyes darkened. She looked at Bei Yunj and knew that her chance had come. The socialites in Continent K were also xenophobic. In the past she was the one who was treated as an outsider. However, the most pitiful person was someone else now. However, Tong Hua did not sympathize with Bei Yunj. She only felt that Bei Yunj had asked for it since she dared to go against Wang Huiying. Huiying is my friend. Miss, since you're alone, why don't you sit at the back? Tong Hua said calmly. The butler hesitated when he heard this. He remembered that although this young lady had come alone, the invitation she received had arranged for her to have a first-class seat. It's not considered rude. The people at this table are all people like Elder Dong and Master Shi. Tong Hua's tone was gentle. She even smiled at Bei Yunj and asked, Miss Pei, you should understand, right? As soon as she finished speaking, Bei Yunj's gaze slowly swept over her. Tong Hua clenched her fists unconsciously. She felt an inexplicable pressure. However, the next moment. He only heard Bei Yunj scoff softly, but she did not say a word. Obviously, she did not take them seriously. Tong Hua's smile froze for a moment. Suddenly, someone congratulated them from not far away. Everyone turned around and saw that it was Madame Bai. Aku, are you still adapting here? Madame Bai looked at Tong Yi with a gentle gaze. She took her hand and attracted the envy of many people. Tong Li saved the young master of the Bai family. It was worth it to exchange for such treatment. Thank you, madam. I'm fine here. Tong Ye's lips curled up as well. She was grateful to Madame Bai for helping her out of her predicament. If the Bai family hadn't paid for her mother's treatment, she might have stolen the watch and sold it to the black market. You don't have to be so polite with me. Actually, I also hope that I can have a daughter. Madame Bai's hint made Tong Ye's eyes light up. However, in the next moment, Madame Bai asked, What were you talking about? Tong Yi immediately said stiffly, Nothing important. We were just chatting. When Madame Bai heard this, she didn't pay much attention to it. However, when he glanced at Bei Yunj, who was not far away, a trace of amazement flashed through his eyes. Since when did Continent K have such a stunning beauty? Madame Bai was in a daze. Wang Huiying and Tong Ye's expressions changed slightly. But in his heart, he knew very well that even if that person didn't speak, it was still very difficult to ignore him. Madame Bai, long time no see. The familiar voice surprised Wang Huiying. She turned to look at Elder Dong, who was walking over. Elder Dong, it's my honor that you're willing to come. Madame Bai immediately greeted him with a smile. Great-grandfather Dong, you're finally here. Wang Huiying held Elder Dong's hand and said coquettishly. If I don't come, who's going to stand up for you? Elder Dong's words puzzled everyone. Stand up for what? Chapter 11:17. At this moment, Madame Bai's smile faded. She quickly took Tong Li's hand and went up the stage. She chuckled and said, Today's banquet was specially held for Ah Wu. The audience applauded. Elder Dong raised his eyebrows but didn't say anything. Tong Li blushed. Thank you, Madame Bai. What's there to thank me for? If it weren't for you, Ah Ning wouldn't have been so lucky to come back safely. Madame Bai patted Tong Li's hand and smiled. I heard from the director that there weren't any casualties because you fought back against the robbers. As soon as she finished speaking, Bei Yunj's eyes darkened as she looked at Tong Li on the stage. Suddenly, You're Bei Yunj, aren't you? A solemn voice sounded in an unfriendly tone. Bei Yunj glanced at Elder Dong and nodded indifferently, but her attitude angered Elder Dong. Elder Dong sneered. You're indeed Nancy's disciple. You're just as frivolous and ignorant. Nancy didn't take over Confederation 191 back then. Now it's his disciple's turn? Do you really think you can sit in that position? If I can't, why are you so anxious? Bei Yunj's words made Elder Dong's face turn ashen. Ridiculous. No matter what, the successor of Confederation 191 must be of good character. Does Miss Pei think she's qualified? Bei Yunj's temper wasn't good to begin with. The next moment, Bei Yunj's slow tone was indeed infuriating. She sneered. Why, Elder Dong, do you think you can cremate a few relics after you pass away 100 years ago? As soon as she finished speaking, almost the entire place fell silent. These words were so ruthless that it made people tremble in fear. Bastard. Elder Dong was so angry that his whole body trembled. He slammed the table and stood up, unable to control his anger. The surrounding people were scared out of their wits. Wang Huiying's eyes were filled with sarcasm and coldness. Bei Yunj actually dared to offend Elder Dong. Wasn't she courting death? But then Madame Bai walked over. What's going on? Madame Bai subconsciously looked at Bei Yunj. She actually had a good impression of this young lady. Madame Bai, Grandpa Dong didn't mean to ruin your banquet. Wang Huiying pretended to be helpless. At this moment, Tong Yi suddenly said, "No wonder Miss Wang. I wanted Miss Pei to change to another table, but I didn't expect Miss Pei to be so stubborn." Her hesitant look made the others look at Bei Yunj differently. They simply thought that Bei Yunj was trying to climb up the social ladder or deliberately stirring up trouble in the Bai family. Many people were rejoicing in his misfortune, planning to watch the show. They wanted to see how this troublemaker would be chased out of the Bai family. Unexpectedly, Madame Bai only chuckled and asked, "Miss Pei, you're not from continent K, are you?" "I'm from country A." After Bei Yunj finished speaking, Madame Bai's eyes lit up. "Yunqing?" "Yes. Are all the girls in Cloud City so beautiful now?" Madame Bai's teasing made Tong Yi and Wang Huiying's faces stiffen. When Elder Dong frowned, Madame Bai said, "Elder Dong, today is the Bai family's banquet. I hope you can give us some face." Since Madame Bai had said so, Elder Dong couldn't say anything no matter how bad his expression was. On the other hand, Tong Yi pursed her lips, feeling gloomy. Madame Bai had never been easy to talk to. Even she was close to Madame Bai because she saved young Master Bai. But what right did Bei Yunj have? Tong Yi immediately said, "Miss Pei, aren't you going to apologize to Elder Dong?" Chapter 11:18. No one said a word. After all, they had never heard of this excessively beautiful girl being the young miss of any prestigious family. Who would be so bored as to provoke Elder Dong and the Bai family's benefactor for a girl? All of a sudden, Bei Yunj laughed and raised her beautiful eyes. She said calmly, "Miss Tong, since you're so concerned about others, when are you going to return my watch?" Hearing this, everyone else was confused. They didn't understand what was going on between Bei Yunj and Tong Hua. When Tong Wu heard this, she looked up abruptly. Her body stiffened and a chill ran down her spine. No wonder she found Bei Yunj's voice so familiar. She was the girl in the mall. Tong Hua's eyes were filled with fear and uneasiness. Her face turned even paler. "Miss Pei, what do you mean?" She didn't want to claim credit for taking Bei Yunj's watch. She just wanted to sell it on the black market to save money for her mother's treatment. She didn't expect the Bai family to treat her as their savior. Bei Yunj's eyes were cold. She suddenly laughed. "Miss Tong, do you really think it's so easy to take my watch?" Tong Hua instinctively covered the watch in her hand. She was nervous and scared, but her tone was cold. "Miss Pei, don't talk nonsense." It was also Bei Yunj's first time meeting such a woman who did such a stupid thing without hesitation. When Tong Wu saw that Bei Yunj didn't say anything, she thought that Bei Yunj didn't dare to offend her. She was even more determined not to admit it. She didn't hate Bei Yunj at all. Why did Bei Yunj get all the good things? How could she have such an expensive watch and still win the praise of others? It was so unfair. "Miss Pei, you have to have evidence." Tong Hua took a deep breath and raised her chin at Bei Yunj. She smiled and said, "Although I don't know who Miss Pei is, I don't think you can offend me." The atmosphere was tense. Everyone was thinking, "It's over." Tong Hua was now the most popular person in the Bai family. How could Bei Yunj be so stupid as to offend the Bai family? However, Madame Bai hesitated when she saw the watch in Tong Ye's hand. She didn't know why, although she didn't dislike children. However, she had a feeling that Tong Yi was not the kind of person who could steal a gun from a robber. Suddenly, just when everyone was silent, a soft and tender voice sounded. "Mom?" Everyone turned around and heard the old butler anxiously chasing after the little boy. "Little young master, you've gone the wrong way. Please slow down." The little boy seemed to have just woken up. His eyes were red and there was fear in his lifeless eyes. He ran towards Madame Bai with his baby fat arms. However, the little boy did not notice that there was someone standing in front of Madame Bai. He hugged her just like that. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows subconsciously and supported the little boy who almost fell. Soon, when the little boy realized that he seemed to have hugged the wrong person, Bei Yunj slowly squatted down. "Kid, I'm not your parent." Seeing this, everyone's eyes widened. One had to know that the young master of the Bai family hated the touch of strangers. They really didn't expect that someone would be able to step on a mine in such a frenzy. Was this bad luck or did she like to court death? However, the next moment, everyone's jaws dropped. Anning's short little hands directly hugged Bei Yunj's neck and refused to let go. She looked so fragile that it made everyone's heart ache. Sister, I'm scared. Chapter 11:19. The little boy rarely spoke, so his voice sounded sticky and a little twisted. She couldn't quite hear what he was saying. But Bei Yunj understood. Pei Yunj's neck was suddenly hugged and she bent over, unable to get up. She was surprised that this child could recognize her. However, Tong Hua's expression was as ugly as it could be, but before she could panic, Wang Huiying laughed and mocked her. Bei Yunj, Ning can't see anything. Aren't you too shameless to pretend to be a human? Tong Hua forced herself to calm down when she heard this. Her eyes turned cold, but she smiled and said, Miss Pei, are you here to cause trouble? At this moment, everyone looked like they had suddenly realized something. How could there be such a bad and stupid person who purposely came to provoke others? Everyone looked at Bei Yunj with disgust. However, Madame Bai didn't say anything and looked at Bei Yunj thoughtfully. Hence, Elder Dong, who had noticed this, sneered. I don't need to tell you how much Ning's watch was sold for, right? Little girl, even if you want to lie, you have to know the truth first. Then you have to see if you're worthy. Do you know what kind of family the Tong family is? Indeed. It was also because of this that everyone was convinced. The Tong family was one of the top 5 families in Continent K, so it was reasonable for Tong Hua to buy this watch. But Bei Yunj? She didn't have any accessories on her body, and she didn't even wear an exquisite gown like the others. She only wore a simple white cotton shirt. She was simply an eye-catching anomaly at this banquet. Suddenly, a voice interrupted Bei Yunj's thoughts. What lie? Everyone turned around and saw a man in a wheelchair. Even though he was in a wheelchair, it was still difficult to ignore his handsome and indifferent eyes. His figure was thin but slender. It's President Shang. Everyone was shocked at first, then they were in disbelief. President Shang actually came to Continent K? Even though the man was in a wheelchair, many women were still attracted to him. Bei Yunj also raised his eyebrows. He didn't know when Shang Yan had arrived in Continent K. Elder Dong had also heard of Shang Yan and didn't dare offend him. Tao Shang, I'm sorry for letting you see such a dirty thing. Dirty business? Shang Yan smiled, but his eyes were clear and pitch black. It was easy to be stunned. Yu also sensed that Shang Yan was angry. That's right, President Shang. Madame Bai is holding a banquet for Miss Tong today, but this woman actually said that the watch that Miss Tong lost when she was saving someone was hers. Immediately, someone took the opportunity to strike up a conversation with Shang Yan, mocking Bei Yunj. But he didn't expect that. Shang Yan only laughed ambiguously. The next moment, Shang Yan's wheelchair slowly moved towards Tong Yi. Tong Yi looked at the man in front of her. Even though she knew that this man couldn't walk, she couldn't help but feel touched. Her face blushed. With such attractiveness, it wasn't difficult to tell how attractive Shang Yan was before the accident. However, the man's next words made everyone's jaws drop. It's true that she doesn't know what kind of family the Tong family is. After all, she doesn't like to interfere in the company's matters. The man's slow words made everyone freeze. However, just as Tong Ye's face turned pale, the man said unhurriedly, but since when can the heir of Higgins Corporation be found trouble? With that said, the atmosphere suddenly fell silent before it boiled over. Everyone gasped. The heir of Higgins Corporation. Chapter 11:20. Tong Ye's face paled. But in the next second. However, Shang Yan reached out his slender and good-looking hand and took off the watch on her wrist. His tone was still gentle, but he was gently wiping the watch with the black-gray checkered man's handkerchief. Be it this watch or anything else, Miss Tong should know that there will be a price to pay if you take it by force. In an instant, the blood drained from Tong Pei's face, and his body was on the verge of collapse. Miss Tong, was it you or Miss Pei who saved Ning back then? At this moment, Mrs. Bai suddenly spoke and looked at Tong Yi sharply. Tong Ye's face paled and she hesitated. At this moment. Shang Yan had already handed the watch back to Bei Yunj and said calmly in a gentle voice, Elder young miss, if you have the time to throw a watch worth hundreds of millions, why don't you have the time to return to the corporation to take a look? Pei Chi-Chi, who was being reprimanded, was speechless. She did not throw it casually. It was because she knew that this watch was waterproof that Bei Yunj threw it into the pool near the robbers so that it would not be damaged. Miss Pei, were you the one who saved Ning back then? Mrs. Bai was a little incoherent with excitement. The rest of the people were in disbelief. A dignified heir of Higgins Corporation would actually take such a risk to save someone? I just happened to be here. I was having dinner with a friend. Bei Yunj had never liked to be particular about the ways of the world, so there was no fluctuation in her tone. However, Xiang Yan's voice continued, to Yunj this is not a big deal. Mrs. Bai, you don't have to take it to heart. Today's banquet was specially invited by the head of the Shi family. He hopes that Yunj can stay in Union 191. Hearing this, the rest of the people were still confused. However, Mrs. Bai immediately understood what Xiang Yan meant. Mrs. Bai smiled. Perhaps to Miss Pei it's not a big deal, but to me it's a favor that I can't repay in my lifetime. She then looked at Bei Yunj and her tone became even more serious. If Miss Pei needs any help in the future, the Bai family will definitely cooperate fully. With that said, Tong Ye's face was pale and she did not dare to face the current situation. She was afraid to see those disdainful and mocking gazes. However, in this circle, everyone kicked a man who was down. No way? What era is this? Why is she still playing such shameless tricks? Tisk serves him right for being chased out by the Tong clan. Now that you mention it, I think I know why the Tong family chased this pair of mother and daughter out. Everyone's words pierced Tong Ye's heart. She raised her head abruptly and as expected, she was faced with a bunch of mocking faces. Even those who had just flattered her now had looks of anger or disgust on their faces. Tong Yi subconsciously looked at Elder Dong. However, Elder Dong's face was dark and gloomy. He glanced at her coldly and then left. Elder Dong's attitude clearly meant that she would never have the chance to become Elder Dong's student again. Her face immediately turned red and green, and she felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. In just one night, she fell from the clouds to the mud and was stepped on by everyone. Madam Bai, you have to believe me. I didn't lie to you on purpose. Tong Wu stood in front of Madam Bai. Tears fell from her eyes. Her innocent face made people feel sorry for her. However, Madam Bai was a person with powerful means. How could she not see through this young girl? Miss Tong, are you asking us to chase away our benefactor just now? Madam Bai asked calmly. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.